It? So very good morning to all. So friends, as a part of our question paper analysis and discussion sessions, in this session, let's try to decode and analyze GS paper 3. Okay, so this is very, very important. So as what happens in generally, students will be interested in paper 1, paper 2 and paper 4. So everyone will neglect the paper 3 and that's where the problem arises. And thing is that winners don't do different things. You have to keep this thing in mind that winners do same things differently. That means things in a different way. So those who will just focus more on GS paper 3, definitely they will emerge as successful persons. So keep this logic in mind. So generally, very regularly that students will try to neglect GS paper 3. If we look in past years, usually in paper 3, students will score less marks. Why? Means there would be a kind of negligent attitude. There would be a kind of hesitation towards GS paper 3. Okay, so this arises as biggest problem for these students. So here in this class or in this session, let's try to decode and analyze GS paper 3. Okay, so if we basically talk from the perspective of GS paper 3, so we have 5 broad sections in GS paper 3. So what are those 5 broad sections? So GS 3, it has 5 broader sections. So one section is, it is related to economy and socio-economic development. Okay, next important section is, it is agriculture. Then next one is science and technology. So this is another thing, science and technology. And next one is environment ecology and disaster management. So next one is environment, ecology and clubbed with disaster management. So this is another section. And the last section which we have is, good, it is internal security. And if we try to analyze this year's paper, 2023's paper, this paper again, it is very well structured with a balanced approach. It is also very well structured with balanced approach. Very well structured and with balanced approach. Why we are saying like that means, here when we look at all the sections that have been there in GS paper 3, they have been given equal importance. Equal importance in the sense, if you look from economy section in paper 3, 50 marks have been allocated for economy. So 50 marks here in the sense, 2 questions for total of 4 questions. Out of the 4 questions, 2 from 10 markers and 2 from 15 markers. So 20 plus 30, 15 marks, 50 marks. So in agriculture also, it has been allocated 50 marks. 50 marks here in the sense, again same, 2 10 markers and 2 15 markers. So 20 plus 30, 50 marks. Now, in science and technology also, 50 marks, 2 10 markers and 2 15 markers. And environment ecology and disaster management. For this also 50 marks, 2 10 markers and 2 15 markers. And finally we have internal security. So rest is 50 marks. 2 10 markers and 2 15 markers. Now, which subject will you neglect? We cannot neglect any subject. And thing here is that it consists of different subjects in one paper. Different subjects in the sense economy and agriculture. Though they may just, they are under one roof, but still there is one section. Science and technology is different, environment ecology is different, and internal security is different. So we have different subjects. So that's where problem arises with reference to GS paper 3. So you have to give equal emphasis on all the subjects that have been mentioned in GS paper 3. So that is one thing. Okay. So this is with reference to basic analysis of GS paper 3. Okay. So by this time you might have got an idea that how questions might have been asked. So two in 10 markers and 2 in 15 markers from each section they have picked and they have asked like that. So if you just try to have a look at the basic question papers and questions that have been picked. So just have a look at the questions. So these are the questions that have been picked and asked in GS paper 3. So look at the first two questions. So the first two questions, they are from economy section. They are from economy section. So look at the first question. It says that faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP, particularly of MSMEs. Comment on the present policies of government in this regard. So it is a direct question from economy. So where the question tries to seek the significance of manufacturing sector in the economic growth. So we have different sectors. So primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector, quaternary sector. Likewise, we have different sectors. Amongst that, we have manufacturing sector. Manufacturing sector, which constitutes in secondary sector. So question is with reference to that. Okay, so it is a direct question from economy. There is no interlinkage here. And now look at the second question. What is the status of digitalization in Indian economy, and examine the problems faced in this regard and suggest improvements. So this is also a direct question. So at present, digitalization is in trend. So the question was there on that particular topic. So it is also direct question and from economy. There is no much issues with reference to this question also. So it is also a direct question. Now, the next two questions, try to recollect the divisions which we have made. First one was economy, second one was agriculture. Now look at the next two questions. How does e-technology help farmers in the production and marketing of agricultural produce? Explain it. So this is another question. It is another direct question from agriculture syllabus. If you happen to see, even in our class schedule also, there is a separate topic called e-technology in the aid of farmers. So from that topic, it is a direct hit question. There is no subjectivity in this, direct hit question. So again, UPSC tried to prove that if you stick to this syllabus strictly, then you can score half of the marks easily. So that's what UPSC again proved in this paper. Okay. Now look at the next question that is asked in agriculture. State the objectives and measures of land reforms in India. So state the objectives and measures, land reform measures in India. Discuss how land ceiling policy and land holding can be regarded as an effective measure to effective reform under economic criteria. So this is second question from agriculture section. So here we have done this in the class also. So simply our first topic was land reforms. There it is a direct hit. There is no more subjectivity also. So simply you have to mention objectives and measures, and then you have to talk about the role of land ceiling policy. So that is one thing. So it is also one question from agriculture section. Then look at the next section, that is science and technology. So first question in science and technology was, introduce the concept of artificial intelligence. How does artificial intelligence help in clinical diagnosis? And do you perceive any threat to privacy of the individual in the use of AI in healthcare? So while dealing about the science and technology, we have specifically and we have exclusively discussed about artificial intelligence. So this is also a direct question. There is no subjectivity, further subjectivity in this. So strict applications of artificial intelligence, because nowadays artificial intelligence was in surge. Artificial intelligence has become a buzzword in the market. So question was there. So questions have been well framed from the current context. Wherever the current context questions are there, they have been framed in a better way. Okay, so that is one thing. So now look at the next question. Discuss several ways in which microorganisms can help in meeting the current fuel shortage. At present, the world is facing the issue of fuel shortage due to more demand. So in this context, how we can use microorganisms in meeting the fuel shortage? That is the context. Okay, so this question is also a very well anticipated question. So even in G20 also, Prime Minister has stipulated to launch National Biofuel Aviation program initiative. So from that context also the question might have been picked. Okay, so that is one thing. So don't worry, like let's try to understand how to write and what is the approach. So that was one thing. So then next question, this is dam failures. A question is there and dam failures. So dam failures are always catastrophic, especially on the downstream side, resulting in colossal loss of life and property. Okay, so analyze the various causes of dam failures and give 2 examples of large dam failures. So the question is from disaster management section, where we have some of the man-made disasters. Amongst man-made disasters, so dam failures, this is also one disaster. So the question is, they have given one statement, and in this context, they have asked you to analyze the various causes and to provide various examples. No more subjectivity, direct question. Then, what is oil pollution? What are its impacts on the marine ecosystem? In what way is oil pollution particularly harmful to the country like India? So this is a question asked from environment and ecology. We have environmental pollution topic. So in environmental pollution, we have various types of environment pollution: soil pollution, water pollution, all such kind of pollutions. We have air pollution and marine pollution, oil pollution. So all of them, radioactive pollution. So amongst that, they have picked one pollution, that is oil pollution. So that is one thing. So it is also direct question. So there is no much issue in this question. And then look at the questions from internal security portion. So winning of hearts and minds in terrorism affected areas is essential step in restoring the trust of the population. Discuss the measures adopted by the government in this respect as a part of the conflict resolution in Jammu and Kashmir. So this is also a highlighted issue in the recent times. So there were so many concerns related to the security in Jammu and Kashmir. So this was a question from that perspective. Okay, so it is from internal security. Okay, then last question is that use of UAVs, unarmed aerial vehicles, by our adversaries across the borders to ferry arms or ammunition, drugs, etc., is a serious threat to the internal security. Comment on the measures being taken to tackle this threat. That means threat posed by UAVs. Drones. UAVs means drones. So what are the probable issues? What are the probable problems that we may face with respect to internal security related to usage of drones in the border areas? So that was one question. Okay, so these were 2 questions from internal security area. Okay, section. So they are 10 marker questions. Now can you able to see how beautifully they have arranged the questions and how sectorally they have asked 2 questions from each section? Okay, so that is one thing. So then if you just look at the 15 marker questions, first 2 questions are from economy section again. So first question is, most of the unemployment in India is structural in nature, and examine the methodology adapted to compute unemployment in the country. So the question is again a direct question. And in the past years, they haven't focused on these topics like poverty and unemployment. But this time they have picked unemployment. And they have already given in the question that the nature of unemployment in India is structural, and highlight or examine the methodology adapted to compute the unemployment. So that is one question. So this also you will study in the economy section directly. So then next question, distinguish between care economy and monetized economy. How can care economy be brought into monetized economy through women empowerment? This question is slight analytical, and this question requires little in-depth knowledge. Okay, so except this question till now, all the questions were not of much problematic questions. Okay, so here you need to have the knowledge of what is care economy first, and then you need to have the knowledge of what is monetized economy, and then here you require some other knowledge how to integrate care economy with the monetized economy. Let's try to learn about that. Okay, so that is one question. So these were two questions from 15 markers questions from economy section. So that is one thing. So then look at the next questions. They are from agriculture section again. So look at this. So explain the changes in the cropping pattern in India in the context of changes in the consumption pattern and marketing conditions. So changes in the cropping pattern. So shift from wheat rice system to rice another system. So based upon the requirements. So this is also one direct question. Okay, so no much issues in this. Then look at the next question. What are the direct and indirect subsidies provided to the farm sector in India? Discuss issues raised by WTO in relation to agricultural subsidies. Okay, so this question also we have done directly. So even in DPP, even in our practice paper also we have given the same question. So what are direct and indirect farm subsidies? So those who happen to write the DPPs, they will feel all these questions are simple. So it can be land reforms question. Recently we were doing agriculture part. So in that land reforms question was a direct hit question. And the second thing was the indirect and direct farm subsidies. This question is also a direct question from DPPs. And then cropping pattern, slight application, but anyhow, as we have understood different cropping patterns and cropping systems, so we can just write. Okay, so that is one thing. So these were two questions from agriculture section. So then next section is science and technology. And this question, 15th question, has a slight tinge and interlinkage with science and technology and environment ecology. So this is one thing here. So look at this question. Adoption of electric vehicles is rapidly growing worldwide. How do electric vehicles contribute to reducing carbon emissions, and what are the key benefits they offer compared to the traditional combustion engine vehicles? So the question is interlinked between science and technology and environment ecology. So one thing is that there are so many emerging technologies in science and technology. So as a part of that, electric vehicles, e-vehicles is one important emerging technology. So here the question is asking about comparison between electric vehicles and traditional combustion vehicles. So one thing is comparison between that, and how electric vehicles will help in reducing carbon emissions. So that is the question. Okay, so next, what is the main task of India's third moon mission? Third moon mission. What was the third moon mission? It is Chandrayaan-3. So it was a very well anticipated question, and UPSC has picked, but slightly it directly it doesn't ask, it did not ask, but simply it asked in an indirect way. So look how UPSC is asking the question. What is the main task of India's third moon mission, which could not be achieved in its earlier mission? Earlier mission means Chandrayaan-2. So what was the main task? Main task was soft landing on the South Pole. So soft landing. So that was the main task. So they have asked that one. And then list the countries that have achieved this task. It's also direct. So even in the class also we have discussed what were the various countries. Already US has done it, Russia has done it, and then China has done it. So next country is India. So this was also a simple thing. This question looks lengthier question, but thing is that it's very simple question. It is the lengthiest question and it is the simplest question in this paper. Okay, so that is one thing. So next you look at introduce the subsystems in the spacecraft launched and explain the role of virtual launch control center at the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, which contributed to the successful launch from Sriharikota. So question simply it looks lengthier, but demand of the question is very simple. Simply they are asking about main task of Chandrayaan-3 and what countries have achieved soft landing, and next thing is explain about different subsystems under that, like Vikram rover and Vikram lander and Pragyan rover, and different systems used in it. So then finally, role of virtual launch control center. That's it. So that is the question, demand of the question here. So that is one question. So it was also very well anticipated. Then look at 17th question. This is from again environment and ecology. So if you look at this question, comment on the National Wetland Conservation Program, National Wetland Conservation Program initiated by the government, and name a few India's wetlands of international importance included in Ramsar sites. So this also we have done directly in the class, and we have also written DPPs on this question. So simply the question is asking about the National Wetland Conservation Program. So we have written a detailed note also on that. And you are very well aware that there are a lot of Ramsar sites. How many Ramsar sites are there in India? It is 75. So we have tried to learn that by 75th anniversary of independence, after completion of 75 years of independence, we have got 75 Ramsar sites. So we have discussed that also. Okay. So it is asking simply to name few. That's it. It is not asking about to explain or just to highlight anything. Simply naming. So you can name few, at least 5 to 6 you can mention, and you can just say. So simple question. That is also a simple question. So then this is also very well anticipated question. So the Governmental Panel on Climate Change, that is IPCC has predicted a global sea level rise of about 1 meter by 2180. And what would be impact in India and other countries in the Indian Ocean region? So the question is again straightforward and direct question. So can you able to recollect from GS paper 1 where the question was asking about the impact of climate change? So they have picked GS paper 3 questions there also, and if those who have missed to read those topics, at least they might have got a kind of hints that UPSC is focusing on climate change. So at least if they would have revised, then this question could have been attempted easily. Impacts of climate change. It is nothing but impact of climate change. The body itself, it is on climate change. So that is one thing. Okay, so that is one thing. So then look at the last questions from internal security. What are the internal security challenges being faced by India? Direct question. There is no subjectivity in this. And then give out the role of central intelligence and investigative agencies tasked to counter such threats. So here you require specific knowledge. Here you require the proper knowledge of these two bodies. So that is one thing. So question, half of the question is direct and simple. Half of the question requires specific and in-depth knowledge. So that is one thing. So then give out the major sources of terror finding in India and the efforts being made to curtail these sources. So recently terror financing and terror funding was in use. So here in the light of this, also discuss aim and objective of No Money for Terror, NMFT conference recently held at New Delhi in November 2022. Now, with this question, UPSC has tried to directly showcase the importance of current affairs. So this conference was there, and in the context of this conference, the question have been framed. So this question has been beautifully interlinked with the current affairs. Okay, so almost out of 20 questions which we have saw now, so 4 were from economy section, 4 were from agriculture section, 4 were from science and technology, and 4 were from the environment ecology, and again 4 from internal security section. So in today's session, so I will be handling all the sections except internal security section. So internal security section would be held by Gyan sir. Okay, so whatever the 4 questions are there, so it would be dealt by Gyan sir. Okay, so let's try to discuss these questions. Whatever the economy section, all the sections are there, let's try to discuss and let's try to learn what would be the best approach and how we can write answers. And if we were happen to attempt the test, how we could have done or how we should done. So let's try to have a look at that. So first, if you try to look at the very first question. So what's the first question? The first question, it was related to economy. So the question was related to MSMEs and manufacturing sector. Now, look at this question. So the question is again, faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in the GDP, particularly of MSMEs. So in the context of this statement, comment on the present policies of government in this regard. So question seeks to highlight the significance of manufacturing sector with reference to the contribution to GDP. So we have various sectors. So primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector. Out of these three sectors, which sector has substantial contribution towards GDP in India? It is? No, it's tertiary sector. It is services sector. Services sector. Out of 100%, more than 50% of the contribution is there from services sector in India. And then at the second juncture, we have the secondary sector, that is manufacturing sector. Secondary sector contributes to around 25 to 26% of the GDP. Okay, so tertiary sector, it's more than 50%, roughly 55 to 56% of GDP is contributed from tertiary sector. Okay, are you able to follow that? And the last one is primary sector we have. So primary sector, it roughly contributes to around 20%. Contributes to around 20%. So this is the contribution. And now here if we look, the three things. So primary is one thing, and secondary is one thing, and tertiary is one thing. So we have already said that tertiary sector, it contributes to around 50 to 55% of the GDP, 50 to 55%. Okay, so currently if we take from 2021 to 2022 data, and then it contributes to around 22 to 25%. And primary sector, it contributes roughly from 18 to 20%. So that's how. So rest, we have quaternary sector, we have other sectors. So slightly which have been there, whatever has been missed is being done by other sectors. And here the question has been asking about significance of secondary sector. In the secondary sector, we have different things like manufacturing sector, industry and manufacturing sector, MSMEs, and we have all other things. So here they are asking the role of this sector. If we just increase the significance to manufacturing sector, still we can just improvise the GDP. So that's what they are asking. Okay, so that is one thing. So here, how we can approach to this question means, in the introduction, basically what you can do in the introduction means, in the introduction, you can just simply highlight the contributions of manufacturing sector to the GDP of the country, and you can also provide a special emphasis on MSME sector. MSME sector means micro, small and medium enterprises. So micro, small and medium enterprises. So in the introduction, you can say that basically in the entire GDP of India, so around 20 to 25% of the contribution has been done by manufacturing sector. So out of this 25%, so MSMEs play vital role. MSMEs have substantial contribution. So likewise you can say and bring in the context of the question. Okay, so that is one thing. Then in the introduction, in the body portion, what you can write? In the body portion, you can highlight that you can enumerate various initiatives, programs or measures taken by the government with respect to manufacturing sector in general and with respect to MSMEs in particular. The question is asking about the same. Look at the question. So comment on the present policies, and here increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP, particularly of MSMEs. So question is asking you to write about the initiatives of government towards manufacturing sector in general and towards MSMEs in particular. So that is one thing. So here in the body portion, you can highlight these things, okay, various initiatives taken. So that is one thing. So then in the conclusion, you can provide a way forward and you can conclude. Okay, so that's how you can just answer this portion. And in the body portion, what kind of points you can use? Here we are talking about initiatives, programs, measures taken by government. So what could be the probable initiatives? What are the various initiatives taken by government with respect to developing manufacturing sector? Okay, so if you have a look at various policies, one thing is that we are all very well aware that we have Make in India program, Make in India program, and recently we have Make in India 2.0. So Make in India initiative, it tries to highlight the production in India, and it tries to attract the FDIs from the foreign countries so that it provides further boost to the manufacturing sector. So Make in India is one thing, ease of doing business. So it was also in use, ease of doing business. So reducing the complications and restrictions in the laws and all those things. So ease of doing business. If whenever you want to establish any organization or any industry, so there should laws and things should be simplified. So ease of doing business will focus on that thing. So we have to highlight that the ease of doing business is also one such measure to encourage the manufacturing sector. Then Startup India scheme. So startups are nothing but those companies or those industries which are going to start with a small investments. So startups. So Startup India scheme. Then Production Linked Incentive Scheme. There is another scheme called Production Linked Incentive Scheme. So this is also one scheme. Then we have other things like PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan Scheme initiative. So this is also one initiative which is in news. Okay, so you also have to learn about the current and contemporary aspects. Okay, so keep these things in mind. The question paper, the GS3 question paper is having a current tinge also. So you also have to now have this specific knowledge. Okay, without having this knowledge, what are the various initiatives, you cannot write anything. So that's how. Okay, now then Bharatmala project, Bharatmala Pariyojana. So Bharatmala Pariyojana, it enhances the road connectivity. So how does road connectivity will help in manufacturing sector, help for growth in manufacturing sector? Yes, exactly. So when road connectivity is there, obviously the goods can be distributed to different parts. So when there is more connectivity, then goods that have been produced in one part of the country can be transported to other part. If there is no transport connectivity, obviously that would be a kind of issue, so challenge. So with this Bharatmala project, so that issue also have been cleared off. So then Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign. So during COVID-19, we have launched Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. So amongst that, we have, it also helps to manufacturing sector. Then industrial corridor development program, industrial corridors. We have adapted to build industrial corridors. So as we are talking about industries is also part and parcel of manufacturing sector. So that is also one thing. So special economic zones policy, this is also related to manufacturing, and it also constitutes different things related to manufacturing. So out of all this, you can pick any 4 to 5 and you can explain in 2 lines. No need to mention everything, but it's that out of this, any 4 to 5 points you can pick and you can explain. And then the question also asks you to highlight the policies or initiative related to MSMEs in particular. So you also have to specifically mention about them. So what are the policies or initiatives towards MSME sector? So that is one thing. So one important program that we have with respect to MSMEs is that Rising and Accelerating MSME Performance Program. So this program is known as RAMP, Rising and Accelerating the MSMEs Performance Program. So this is one thing related to MSMEs. Okay, then we have Mudra Loan Scheme. we have Mudra loans. Have you heard of Mudra loans? Mudra loan scheme, Mudra scheme. So this is also one scheme which provides financial assistance to the, yes, financial assistance to the MSMEs. So we have Kishore, Sishu. So such kind of 3 categories of loans are there. So that is with reference to Mudra loan scheme. You can mention this thing. Then credit linked capital subsidy scheme. This is another scheme related to MSMEs. Credit linked capital incentive capital subsidy scheme. Okay, so you can quote these things. Or there is another initiative called Spurti initiative. Spurti. So Spurti, full form of Spurti is Scheme of Fund for Rejuvenation of Traditional Industries. So this scheme particularly focuses on the traditional industries and to revive and to rejuvenate the traditional industries. Okay, so that is one thing. So this scheme is also helpful to develop and revamp the MSMEs. Then next one is Aspire initiative. So Aspire means a scheme for the promotion of innovation, rural industry and enterprise. Aspire. So it is also related to MSMEs. Okay, so that is one thing. Then we have various digitalization initiatives in India, like it can be digital Saksham program or like ASEEM portal. ASEEM portal means Atmanirbhar skilled employees, employee-employer mapping. ASEEM portal we will say. So this portal will try to provide a platform which helps in interlinking between the employee and employers. So we will have the proper mapping so that it also helps to boost the MSMEs. So that's how these are different policies. So some of the policies you can pick any 3 to 4 or 3 to 5 and just you can simply explain about them. So that's how you have to do. So this portion requires specific factual knowledge as well as in-depth knowledge. Without knowing the schemes and their aims and objectives, you cannot answer. Are you getting that? So that's how you have to learn about the government schemes and initiatives. So it is also useful from tree perspective also. Important from tree perspective. So next, you can conclude the answer by providing a basic way forward. You can say, what is the significance of manufacturing sector in the GDP? And then you can say how you can just improvise that. So if you focus on the R&D and innovation in manufacturing sector, then obviously we can just revamp this sector. So that is one thing. So then to encourage MSMEs, what we can do? So we can focus on exports through incentives or such kind of things. So we can say such points and we can just conclude the answer. Okay, so that's how you can approach to the first question. Okay, so that is related to manufacturing sector and MSMEs. So that is with reference to the first question. Then next thing is related to digitalization. Digitalization. So here also question is straightforward. So question is directly seeking you to mention about the status of digitalization in Indian economy. This question is also need in-depth knowledge. So you also have to mention statistical data here. And one thing what you have to keep in mind is that whenever you write GS paper 3, it requires in-depth knowledge. In-depth knowledge, and you have to collect all the data from various areas. So you have to collect. Before going to the exam, you have done all these things. Okay, there would be a lot of reports, indices, or from different things you have to collect the data likewise. So that is one thing. So then next part of the question is asking about examine the problems faced in this regard and suggest improvements. Problems related to digitalization and suggest some measures for improvements. So in introduction, what you can mention? In introduction, simply you can mention that you can mention about Digital India program and its aims and objectives you can mention. So through this Digital India program, we have intended to digitalize various sectors or various zones of India. So that's how you can say, and you can provide brief account of people using digital means in India. So how much percentage of the people are connected with digital initiatives. So you can just mention such kind of statistical data in intro. Then in the body portion, you can provide current status of digitalization in Indian economy, current status. So you can just divide this systematically into different sectors, and then you can just mention the status of digitalization in India. Okay, so that is first part of the question. Second part is you have to highlight the problems faced in digitalization, and you have to suggest some measures to improve, or you have to suggest some measures to ease the process of digitalization, what we have to take. So that is one thing. So here, what you can do and what kind of points you can pick here is that with reference to digitalization, status of digitalization, one thing is that we can say in the first point stating that India is one of the largest digital consumer market. It has one of the largest digital consumer market. And if we just look the data and statistics from 2018 point of view, so from 2018, if you see, around 560 million internet subscribers were there in India. So we can say that in 2018, we had this many number of internet subscribers. By 2023, bypassing 5 years, currently we have more than 750 million subscribers. So that is one important status of digitalization. So that you can mention here. Okay. Then you can also talk about with respect to telecommunications. So with reference to telecommunications and telecommunication connectivity, there was a substantial growth in the telecommunications and telecommunication connections. So that is also one thing. So it also showcases the status of digitalization. Okay. Then if we talk from the government's digitalization with respect to various sectors, there are various sectors. We can take any sector. We can take the primary sector. In primary sector, things related to agriculture. Agriculture also got digitalized. We have e-technology. So e-technology is in the primary sector. Then secondary sector, manufacturing sector, it has also got digitalized. So we can say that almost all the sectors has got digitalized in India. So we can say that point. Then if you look from broadband and internet usage point of view, so there was a phenomenal upsurge from 2018 to 2019. There was a phenomenal upsurge in broadband connectivity. Now, basically, if you see in day-to-day life also, in every home nowadays we can see Wi-Fi connections. And nowadays we can see the telephone communication connectivity with the broadband services. So this is one thing we can say and we can quote. Then with reference to e-commerce field is also has tremendous growth in recent past. So you can mention and we can highlight that things. So that is with reference to the current status. This is how you can pick the points and you can mention so any points. So that is, as these are 10 marker questions, you no need to just go for lengthier points. Remember, in 10 markers what you have to do. If the question is having 2 parts, so then simply restrict yourselves to mentioning 5 points in each section, so that 5 points in one part of the answer, 5 points in other part of the answer. Roughly, you can answer this in within 10 to 12 lines. So that much space constraint and word limit will be there, and that would be fine. Okay, so 5 points here and 5 points in the next portion. So that is fine. So then look at the problems faced in digitalization. So what are the various problems faced in digitalization? So in India, one of the biggest issue with reference to digitalization was having digital divide. Digital divide here in the sense, there are some people who are not aware with the digital aspects. So there is a clear-cut digital divide in India. So due to illiteracy, due to poverty, due to all such kind of things, people are not aware. So there is a clear-cut divide in the population. So this is one point. So this is one important problem. Then there are some concerns with respect to data privacy and data security. Digitalization. Now, for example, when we are digitalizing all our data with in digital modes, there is every possibility that this data can be stolen by hackers and they can be used for malicious purposes. So for opening bank accounts or opening all other such kind of fraudulent activities, the data can be utilized by the hackers or like those cyber criminals. So there are some concerns related to data privacy and data security. So that is one problem in digitalization, overcoming this. Then regulatory, there are some regulatory challenges also. So we have to regulate all the things in a systematic manner. So regulatory challenges is also one such thing. Then there are so many infrastructure bottlenecks. We have also have issues related to proper infrastructure. So infrastructure bottlenecks, infrastructure issues is one such things in digitalization. Then information asymmetry. So on paper it would be something, and on reality in practical it would be different. So there is a clear-cut information asymmetry, that is there is a clear-cut mismatch between the practically happening things and on paper existing things. So that is also one issue. Then poverty and illiteracy. So poverty and illiteracy, so because of this only people are becoming illiterates, and when they are illiterates, obviously they cannot understand some of the digital aspects. So these are various problems faced in India with reference to digitalization process. Okay, so here what suggestions you can give to improve? What suggestions you can give to improve the digitalization? So there is one problem, that digital divide is there, lack of access to digital economy, that is there. So how can you do, or how can you overcome with this? Means you can just go for adapting some digital literacy programs. Wherever and whenever we are just using any digital initiatives, we can just launch digital literacy programs so that people will get awareness with respect to these things. Okay, so that is one thing. So then we have concerns with respect to data privacy and security. That is one problem. And improvement or suggestions can be that we have to adapt strict data protection laws. Strict data protection laws. You can also highlight and quote Sri Krishna Committee report. Sri Krishna Committee report. So that was related to data protection laws. So you can mention that as another suggestion. And then there were regulatory challenges. So to overcome the regulatory challenges, you can simplify the regulations. Actually, with reference to the digitalization, regulations at present are so complicated and complex. So thing is that we have to simplify those regulations, simplification of the regulations, so that we can bring ease with reference to these things. So that is one another important aspect. Then we have infrastructure bottlenecks. So to overcome infrastructure bottlenecks, you can bring some investments, more investments in infrastructure. When infrastructure is available more, obviously we can overcome some of the issues arising from lack of infrastructure or dearth of infrastructure. That is one thing. So then we have poverty and illiteracy, and we have some cyber security issues. So to overcome that, cyber security measures can be taken, or innovation support measures can be taken. So whenever and wherever you are asked to write about some suggestions to improve, you just basically think about the problems faced, or issues, or challenges, and try to address these challenges. That's it. So if you suggest some measures, that would be nothing but the solutions or way forward. So likewise, you can use this content and you can just write. So again, I am saying you don't need to write all of these points. You can just pick any 3 to 4 or 3 to 5 and just you can answer. Okay, so that is one thing. So it is 10 marker question. So you will have space constraint. So that is one thing. So this is with reference to the second question. And then next question is from agriculture. In agriculture, the question is, how does the technology help farmers in production and marketing of agricultural produce? Explain it. Question is direct. So question is trying to focus on only two aspects. One is role of e-technology in agricultural production and role of e-technology in marketing. That's it. Okay. So in introduction, basically you can introduce the answer by mentioning that why and what is the need for employing e-technology in agriculture. Okay, so e-technology, what is e-technology and what is the need to employ e-technology in agriculture. You can use that thing and you can mention that point in the introduction. And then in the body portion, what you can do, you can explain the role of e-technology in boosting the production of agriculture in one subhead. Then in the next subhead, you can mention or you can explain the role of e-technology in enhancing marketing of agricultural produce. Okay, so two subheads you can use and you can answer under that. Okay, so here if you look, what is the role of e-technology in increasing the production? So with reference to production, what is the e-technology? E-technology means information communication technology. So all the digital modalities. So how we can just use it in improving the agricultural production. So if you look, at present we have online marketplaces for purchasing inputs. There are a lot of inputs that are required for agriculture. Let's say seeds, let's say chemicals, fertilizers, or irrigation equipment, or all these things are nothing but inputs for the agriculture. So at present we are using various online markets for purchasing the inputs. So that is one way. So that's how it is helping in better access to inputs. So that is one thing. So then access to information. So now farmers have very well access to all the information related to agriculture. So we have various applications like the M-Kisan portal and SMS service. So in this Kisan portal, you can see all the information related to with reference to soil, with reference to nutrients, with reference to all such kind of things is possible. So for which type of soil, for which, how much nutrients you have to use, so such things. So there is one thing. So then if you look from access to credit, so online access is there. Nowadays we can directly have the access to credit. So farmers with one click they will get the credit. So this is also one thing. Previously, earlier they have to roam around the banks to fetch the credit facilities. Now with their mobile phones itself, they can with one click they can just fetch the credit. So that is one thing. So loans they are being provided, so such thing. So we have SBI has launched Yono Krishi app, so agricultural related app. So you will get all the details related to agriculture and such things. So that is one important aspect. So we can also have the technology with respect to mechanization of the farms. So if we talk from Mahindra company provides, Mahindra company offers tractor rental service. So even if you don't have the tractors for your farms, you can just rent a tractor, and this is also through online. With one click you will get the tractor to your agricultural field. So that's how technology is useful in enhancing the production. So all these things are helpful for enhancing the production. Okay, and other thing is that we can also use the information communication technology in various aspects. We have Bhuvan portal. Have you heard of Bhuvan portal? So there is a portal called Bhuvan portal which uses the GIS information. So geographical information system. So GIS. So GIS services will be used, and all those things are helpful in enhancing the production and productivity of agricultural markets. So agricultural produce. So these are all various things. And nowadays we have various sensors. By using various sensors, we can also monitor the livestock and agricultural lead activities also. That's how also we can enhance the production. Okay, so these are different things that we can use, different technological aspects that we can use to boost the agricultural production. In the similar fashion, role of marketing also, role of technology in marketing. So we have some points, we have to write some points. So there, what kind of points means we have National Agricultural Market, ENAM. So it is a single window hub. So on which all the farmers and the sellers and buyers, they can just come to one platform and they can just purchase the things. So ENAM platform. So you can mention about this. And then we have digital reach. We can reach the digital initiatives through farm collectivization. So we have one another initiative called Samunati initiative. So this is helpful to connect different farmers and to collectivize the farmers by farmer producer organizations. Such things are there. So you can mention such kind of things in this thing. So then, like, we have transparency in price information due to e-technology. So we can check the price for anything, price information would be available. So thus we can purchase things. So that's how this is also helping. So we have also different portals like AgMarkNet portal. So you have to mention all such points and you have to highlight. Okay. So again, you see, you need to have knowledge of all these things. You need to have the knowledge of these things. Without having specific knowledge, you cannot write. Without having this, if you write simply that e-technology helps in increasing agriculture produce, e-technology helps in increasing marketing, that doesn't suffice. So that's why usually students will secure less marks in GS paper 3 because it requires specific knowledge and in-depth knowledge sometimes. And you have to collaborate this with the statistical data also. So that is also one thing. So that's where it turns to be tougher. Okay. So keep these kind of constraints in mind, and from now onwards start collecting such kind of things in your preparation. Whenever things are related to schemes and initiatives, programs, so make a list of programs. Wherever you come across any data in newspapers with reference to, it can be reports, indices, or different statistical data, when you come across, try to make a list of those things. So that is very, very, very important. Students will not do such aspects. That's why paper 3 seems tougher for all. So in last year's paper also, no one has crossed more than 100 marks. For 250 marks, no one has crossed. Rarely people, there were hardly 10 to 15 people who have crossed more than 100 in paper 3. Why? Means it requires in-depth knowledge, factual knowledge, in-depth knowledge, analytical knowledge, as well as all other things are required. And subjects also, varied subjects. So that is one thing. So keep all such things in mind and proceed like this. Okay. So then you can conclude the answer by stating the need for evaluating multi-stakeholder approach. Okay. So that's how you can just answer. So that is one thing. So then next question is with reference to land reforms. So in class also we have dealt it very clearly, where state the objectives and measures of land reforms in India, discuss how land ceiling policy and land holding can be considered as an effective reform under economic criteria. So how you can approach to the answer means, look at the central theme. Central theme is related to land reforms. So in introduction, you have to mention about what are land reforms first. Okay, you have to mention what are land reforms. So in India, land reforms basically refers to land tenure reforms. Land tenure reforms. Land tenure reforms here in the sense, like we were trying to redistribute the land from rich to the poor. So that was land reforms. And here you have to mention what was the context of adapting land reforms. So with reference to these things, there was a historical injustice was met out with the farmers. So there was no land being allocated to the tillers. That means tillers were not having the land. It was under the hands of some people. So you have to mention the context of Jamindari system, Raitwari system, that means tenures under British system, and you have to say that in order to bring changes in this existing farm, we have gone for land reforms. Likewise, you have to define what are land reforms, and then you have to bring in the context. Then in body portion, you have to address the chief demand of the question. Chief demand, if you look at the chief demand, one part of the question was asking about enumerate the objectives. So it was asking about objectives and measures. So you have to mention objectives and measures. Okay. So here the question, it is asking state the objectives and measures. So you no need to explain them in detail. Question itself, it is asking about simply state the objectives and measures. So that means you have to basically enumerate them and you have to use them likewise. And then second part, discuss the role of land selling policy and land holdings. So this you have to deal in detail. So how land selling policy led to bring phenomenal changes. So that thing you have to highlight. So finally, in conclusion, you can use or you can highlight the achievements and you can conclude the answer. What achievements we have done or what were the various accomplishments done through land reforms. So that is one thing. So here, what were the basic objectives of land reforms in India? We have tried to understand. One thing was to achieve social justice, which was not prevailing till then. So by distributing land from rich to the poor, so we were intended to achieve a kind of social justice. Can you able to recollect that portion? So that is one thing. So then to protect the rights of tenants. So tenants were getting grossly injustice. So one objective was to protect the rights of the tenants. So we have brought in tenancy reforms or tenancy laws. So that was also one thing. So the next objective was to improve the agricultural productivity. So after independence, one thing was we were lagging with reference to agricultural production and agricultural productivity. So we were net food importers. So can you able to recollect a question from GS paper 1 again? So there was again a question was there on agricultural productivity, net food exporter and net food importer. So that question. So here to improve the agricultural productivity was one another objective. And the last objective was to consolidate and update the land records. So till then there was no updated records and digitalization of the records. So another objective was updating the land records and digitalization of the land records. So these are the objectives of land reforms. Tenants. Tenants are nothing but those people who are working under some people. For example, there would be a landowner would be there. So landowner will provide the land on the basis of leads to some other people. So they will work on that particular, they will do. So they are nothing but rent. It will be rental people. They are nothing but tenants. Okay. So that's how. So then there were some measures that have been taken to implement the land reforms. What are the various measures that have been implemented in India means? One thing was we have brought in Agricultural Land Ceiling and Holding Act. So this was one measure we have done. So we have land ceiling. So till now, some people, the wealth was being concentrated on the hands of few, like jamindars, like such kind of wealthier people. So with land reforms, what we have done, we have brought in an act stating that Agricultural Land Ceiling and Holding Act 1960. So with this act, what we have done, we have kept a ceiling on the land holdings. So this would be the maximum amount of land that one person or one family or household can have. So that was one thing. So that was one measure done under this land reforms. Okay, so that was one. Then we have abolished the intermediaries. So that farmers themselves can directly pay the taxes to the government. So earlier it was not the case. So we used to have jamindars, or we used to have all such intermediaries who used to collect the tax and who used to just mediate between the farmers and the government. So we have tried to abolish that thing. So that is one thing. So then we have also brought a lot of tenancy acts which has provided security to the tenants. Usually there were a lot of injustice that used to be met with the tenants. Okay, so that have been settled out by adapting some tenancy acts. So Bombay Tenancy Act, Madras Tenancy Act. So in each region they have picked and they have mentioned that. So likewise. So we have also brought in the various forest policies and Forest Rights Act. So this was another measure taken with reference to land reforms. And then we have LARR Act. So Land Rehabilitation and Redistribution Act. So this is one another measure that we have taken with reference to the land reforms. Okay, so such things you have to mention, and this would be your first part of the answer. Okay, then second part of the answer was you need to highlight the role of land ceiling policy. So how land ceiling policy has brought in the changes with reference to the existing system. So what was the impact of land policy system? So that you have to mention. So if you basically look, by adapting to this policy, we have reduced land inequality, like haves and have-nots. There was no distinction, like everyone has got specific amount of land likewise. So then it enhanced the agricultural productivity by consolidating land holdings. So that was one another initiative, okay, an achievement. Then it ensured efficient land use and planning. So you can mention all such points and you can just show how land ceiling policy is useful. Okay, so that is one thing, so which you have to do. So this is with respect to land reforms question. And then next question was a direct question. Introduce artificial intelligence. What I introduce the concept of artificial intelligence, and how does AI help in clinical diagnosis? So the zone here has been restricted. So here in the introduction, what you have to say, you have to define artificial intelligence, and you have to highlight that currently artificial intelligence has emerged as a buzzword in the online. So why means we have all the emerging artificial intelligence platforms, like it can be ChatGPT. So ChatGPT or Bard, Google's Bard, or there were so many artificial intelligence platforms that have emerged in recent past in 2022. So in this context, it was very well anticipated question about the artificial intelligence. So they have picked, and they haven't focused much on anything. Simply they have asked a direct question. So it is very simple. But here is that you need to have specific knowledge how AI can be helpful in clinical diagnosis. And in the class also we have discussed the role of artificial intelligence in the medical health care. So there we have discussed about how AI can be used in the clinical diagnosis. We have discussed in detail there also. So here you can just mention in the body same thing. You can enumerate various applications. Yes. So so that is machine learning and deep learning. But here we have to restrict ourselves to clinical diagnosis. Clinical diagnosis means in health care how AI can be used. So that is the specific portion of the specific portion question is picking. So in body portion, what you can write? So you can enumerate various applications in brief, like where AI, artificial intelligence can be used in different fields we can use. So you can mention that in brief, and then you have to emphasize on the role in clinical diagnosis. Clinical diagnosis means how artificial intelligence can be used with reference to in healthcare, particularly for diagnosis of the disease, screening of the diseases likewise. Okay, so that is one thing. So then in the next portion, you have to provide an account on the concerns related to the privacy of individuals with reference to AI data related to AI. Okay, use of AI in healthcare. So that is next portion of the question. Okay, so here it is already we know that what is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is nothing but simulation of human intelligence into the machine, so that machines they themselves can think and they themselves can perform the actions like human. So that is artificial intelligence. That means simulating. We will artificially simulate the intelligence to machines. So that is one thing here. So like so that machine can think and act like humans. So that is artificial intelligence. So basically, if we talk from the application of artificial intelligence and human diagnosis, or sorry, in clinical diagnosis, you can use various things. Various things like we can use these techniques in diagnosis, we can use artificial intelligence in assistance in medical imaging. So usually artificial intelligence means automation would be there. Think of some machines which automatically picks with the help of sensors, such things. So we can use AI in medical imaging, like we have X-rays, we have MRI scans, we have CT scans, or we have like ultrasound scan, all such kind of things. So here artificial intelligence can be used and it may carry on the works done by the technicians. So that is one thing. So we can also use various algorithms to analyze patient medical records. So here systematically analyzing and systematically arranging the data related to patients, it is a Herculean task in healthcare system. So if we use the AI, so we can have some algorithms to have these medical records. So that is also one advantage of AI in health sector. Okay, so that is one thing. So we can use robotic process for automation. So that is also one thing. So simply we can make use of the robots for clinical diagnosis. So such points you have to mention, and you have to highlight some of the concerns also related to privacy of the individuals. So concerns, what kind of concerns are there? Means there are some issues related to data exploitation, and there are some issues related to data breach and unauthorized access through hacking. Now here we are saying that we can store the data of the patients in medical records. We are saying that, and hackers may steal this information and they may use it for any malicious intentions. So that is one thing. So there is some concerns from that point of view. And then there are some concerns related to unregulated use of these data. Here we can use various wearable devices to check the health of a person. So simply wearable devices means watch is a wearable device. So watch with sensor we can use, or watch, or other wearable, we can have bands, we can have the sensor patches we have saw while reading AI part. So all these things are nothing but constitutes wearable devices. So there were some issues related to that wearable devices data. So these wearable devices will be connected with the nearby healthcare centers. Whenever our BP falls, whenever we have a cardiac arrest, obviously this gives information to the nearest healthcare center, like nearest hospital. So the data would be transferred to that kind of things. So problem here is that there can be third-party devices also, so which will serve as platform between the patient and the hospital. So the third-party devices may also possess the information. So this information may further be distributed or may be used for any other purposes. So such kind of concerns are there. Another thing is that the hackers or attackers or cyber hackers, they can transform the data into weapon, and they can just go for asking for ransom or asking for any such kind of blackmailing kind of activities they may resort. So that is one another thing. So likewise you have to mention some other points. So if we talk from the Europe region, so we have general data protection regulations. So general data protection regulations, they give their citizens more control over their personal data, but there is no such things still in India. So we have to bring in such kind of general data protection regulations. So that means still we haven't formed a firm data protection laws and acts. So such things are not being done. So that is also one of the concern. related to privacy, because the data is private. So if we lose the data, it can be misutilized for any other purposes. Are you getting that? So that is one thing. So you have to mention all such kind of points and you have to just address the question. Okay, so that is with reference to AI. Okay, and then next question is, discuss several ways in which microorganisms can help in meeting the current fuel shortage. Current fuel shortage. So here recently we have a report, International Energy Outlook. There is a report has been published by International Energy Agency. So you have to bring in such contexts. You have to bring in such context that according to recent International Energy Outlook, the world is facing a fuel shortage. So you have to highlight. There was a report which talks that compared with 2003 to 2030, around 70% of fuel shortage may arise. So that was a report given by, mentioned under International Energy Outlook. So you have to bring in such kind of things and you have to highlight the context in the introduction. Okay, so as per recent International Energy Fuel Outlook, so world might face the shortage of fuel by 2030, 70% of fuel shortage by 2030. So in this context, it is very, very important for us to look for alternative measures to overcome such fuel shortage. With this regard, utilization of microorganisms can be a best alternative. Likewise, you can introduce the answer. Are you getting that? So likewise, you can introduce. And then in the body portion, what you have to do? You have to enumerate various ways in which microorganisms can help in meeting the current fuel shortage. Ways you have to enumerate. Here, no need to discuss in detail again. Okay, so that is one thing. So then next portion, so you can provide an account on the benefits and challenges related to use of microorganisms to meet the need of fuel shortage. So what are the various advantages? What are the various merits? What are the various benefits of using the microorganisms? Okay, so that you can mention. Though the question is not directly asking, but still to build the concept, you can use such things. Okay, so question is not asking for the benefits and challenges, but still you can mention them so that you can showcase that you know, you are aware of such information also. So that is one thing. So here, when we talk about some of the ways in which microorganisms can help, so we have various processes where we can use the microorganisms. Microorganisms means it can be virus, it can be bacteria, it can be fungi, it can be algae or such things. So here, what are the various ways in which they can help in meeting the fuel shortage means? One thing is that there is a process called microbial methanogenesis. There is a process called microbial methanogenesis. Methanogenesis, genesis means formation. Methanogenesis means methane formation. So by using microorganisms, we can convert the hydrocarbons into methane, and methane can be used as an energy source. So methane, which is produced by using microorganisms, can be used as an alternative fuel. Are you getting that? So that is one thing. So now if we basically think from the LPG gas which we use, in that we will have butane, and methane can also act as another alternative source for fuel. So that is one thing. So then we have other important developments like microbial fuel cells. It is an emerging fuels, emerging things. So here microbial fuel cells can be another alternative source to meet the shortage of fuel. Okay, so then there is a process called biomethanation. So again, so with the help of microorganisms, we can just make use of the methane. So that is one thing. So biomethanation. And we have third generation biofuels. Biofuels are nothing but biofuels. What are biofuels? Biofuels are basically Biofuels are basically the fuels that are prepared are developed by using the living organisms. Living organisms are living things. So think of plants. Plants aren't the living organisms? Aren't they living things? And think about microorganisms. Aren't they living things? So here we have different generations of biofuel. We have discussed in the class also. First generation biofuels, second generation biofuels, third generation biofuels. So in first generation biofuels, what we will do? We will try to make use of the food crops and produce the fuel. And second thing is second generation biofuels. There what we will do? We will try to use the wastes from the food crops. So that is second generation biofuels. You have to recollect all those things. We have studied in detail in class also. Okay. So third generation biofuels are made by using the microorganisms like algae. So they are used in production of fuels. So they are known as third generation biofuels. Are you getting that? So here also by producing them we can have alternative for fuel shortage likewise. Okay, then there are some other process like bioprocessing or like biohydrogen production from biomass. So in all these process we can make use of microorganisms. Okay, so through all these processes and through phenomena we can have alternative sources for the fuel so that we can meet the fuel shortage. Are you getting that? So you have to mention at least 4 to 5 points and then you have to explain in 2 lines at least. Okay, so how that can be done. So then what are the various benefits? What are the various benefits means? So if we use microorganisms, we can produce the energy which is renewable and sustainable. So renewable and sustainable because we can produce more and more microorganisms and there would be no dearth of production of microorganisms. So from that point of view, the energy that is produced with the help of microorganisms would be renewable and would be sustainable. So that would be one benefit. And then if we use microorganisms, there would be one inherent advantage that we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and carbon from the atmosphere. Here what we are doing, we are producing the methane or all those things and we are using this methane into an energy resource as a fuel. So here we are converting this methane again into different forms. So we can address the issue of greenhouse gases, like methane is a greenhouse gas. So we are using it for some productive purposes. So obviously we can reduce the greenhouse emissions likewise, or we can extract the carbon from the atmosphere. That is one another thing. Then energy, we can achieve the energy security and we can have less interdependence on the fuel. So that is one thing. Then it may lead to achieving economic growth, it may lead to creating employment or job creation. So all such points you can mention and you can highlight the second portion. Okay. Then finally you can also mention some of the challenges in usage of microorganisms. Challenges are there. So what kind of challenges means? Basically technology still is at nascent stage. If we basically talk from utilization of microorganisms for production of energy, so still the microbial fuel cells are all these processes are production of biofuels, third generation biofuels. All of them are still at their nascent stages. Technology has not been very widely available. So that is one thing. So then energy intensive production process, because if you look from another challenge, all these processes are energy intensive production process which requires in-depth scientific knowledge, in-depth infrastructure, such kind of things are required. So here, though it may help in all these aspects, but still we have some challenges like this. So you have to mention like all the challenges with respect to cost of production, with respect to availability of technology, with respect to the awareness among the people. So you can mention and you can say that though it may be an alternative source for the fuel shortage, but still we have to evolve a proper approach, by creating proper awareness among the people. So that is important for us. So that you have to highlight and you have to conclude the answer. Okay, so that is with reference to that question. Okay, then next question is related to dam failures. Okay, so here in the body portion, in the introduction, what you can mention is, you can introduce what do you mean by dam failures. And dam failure is an example for man-made disasters. So there are natural disasters and there are man-made disasters. So you can say that dam failure is a one of the man-made disasters amongst various. And there you can say what is a dam failure is. You can mention definition of dam failure. So that is one thing which you can do in introduction. And then in the body portion, as they are trying to seek direct portions, that is causes for the occurrence of dam failures. And the question itself, it is asking to analyze. So each cause you have to take and you have to explain the cause, how this cause may lead to dam failure. So here mere enumeration doesn't work. You have to mention them and you have to analyze them systematically. So that is one thing. So then in the second portion, provide an account on 2 large dam failures that have occurred in the recent past. So you have to here have the specific knowledge. Okay, so 2 large dam failures you have to mention, and that's how you have to proceed. Okay, so and then in the conclusion you can highlight some measures that can be taken to avoid such dam failures. So that is one thing. So when we talk from the perspective of the causes, what are the various causes? What could be the possible causes of one cause is that, yes, so natural disasters like heavy rainfall or floods. Think about such things. So there can be heavy rainfall leading to heavy rise in the water level with respect to dams. So when there is overflow of the water, then obviously sometimes the dams may not be able to hold such kind of the pressure. So there might be possibility of dam failures, so that it may happen. Or all of a sudden there can be floods from the upper course of the dam. So when flooded water from upper course comes and collects at the dam area, obviously dams may get failure because these things are happening at one go. So natural disasters may cause the dam failures. That is one thing. Heavy rainfall, heavy cyclones, or heavy floods, or such kind of things. That is one thing. So then, while constructing the dams, there can be flaws. There can be some shortcomings in the designing and construction of the dams. So there can be any flaws with reference to their construction. In the sense, architectural design may be faulty. They might not have studied the soil properties properly. They might not have studied, they might not have anticipated the load that may come on that particular dam systematically. So such kind of flaws in designing and construction of the dam may also lead to dam failure, so that dams may collapse and so that it may arise as a man-made disaster. So that is one thing. So then there can be issues related to aging of the infrastructure. So mostly dams will run for years together, 100 years, 200 years, 300 years likewise. So as the time progresses, the infrastructure of the dams may get aging. So that may further deteriorate the quality of the infrastructure, and thus they may prone to failures. So that is one thing. So then there can be foundation problems. Foundation problems means, as I was saying about the soil properties or like intactness of the soil, such things should be well evaluated. So they might not have done that. So then seepage and internal erosion or overtopping. Overtopping means overflow of the water from the dams, or operational failures while operating, like they have to operate the gates in a systematic manner. So if they fail to open the gates in real time, there can be more pressure on the dams when there is more water collected. So such things we have to mention, and these are nothing but various causes. And examples, if we talk from examples, in 1979 we have a Machu Dam failure. The Machu Dam, it is located in the Gujarat region in India. So this dam has failed in 1979. So this was one major dam failure which we have. And apart from that, in China we have one another dam, that is Banquio Dam failure. So this has also occurred in 1975. So these were some examples for the recent dam failure. So likewise, you have to bring in and you have to highlight, and simply they have asked same thing. Okay. Recently, exactly. So in Libya, more than 20,000 people have lost their lives, and they have lost their property in one go, in one day. Think like entire Libya has become a dead mount. Entire Libya. Think like 20,000 people in one particular area. So see how big the issue is very recently. So that has happened in Libya. So you also have to go through such kind of things. So these things will turn out to be the questionnaire areas picked by UPSC. In last year, there was a severe famine attack in the region of Somalia region and Eritrea Somalia region. So Horn of Africa region. So that was in that famine and droughts. So even in disaster management classes also I have showed you the image, and I have showed that this Somalia region, remember this Somalia region. So same question UPSC has picked and asked. In the similar fashion, this time Libya has faced severe crisis with reference to dam failure. That was an instance of dam failure. So you can mention such kind of things. And if anyone would have mentioned that one, that would have been the best thing they could have done in this mains, because it was very recent thing, very recent thing in last 10 days, in last 1 week, in last week it has happened. So that could have been the best example that they could have quoted. Okay, so likewise, so you have to mention examples of large dam failures and you have to conclude the answer. So in conclusion, you can mention the need for some things, protective measures, or you can mention measures that you can take to further arrest or stop such kind of things, and you can conclude the answer. Okay, likewise. So that is with reference to dam failure question. So then look at this question. What is oil production? What are its impacts on marine ecosystems, and in what way oil production is particularly harmful for the country like India? Question is direct. So here what you have to do, you have to define oil pollution and you have to mention recent instances of oil pollution. So oil pollution was an issue, a serious issue in the marine regions, in the oceans. So oil spills are like such kind of things are happening. So you have to mention such things, and then in the body portion it is simple. Enumerate the impacts on marine ecosystem and provide an account on harmful effect of oil pollution to India. So simple thing. So you can do this by normally. So there is no much issues with that. So for that thing is that you have to aware of these things. So impacts, it's general. Assume that if there is an oil spill in the ocean, oil spill is there. So oil has got spilled while it is transporting in the ships or any boats. Then what may happen? Oil may just spill on the ocean. So that is basically nothing but oil pollution, one of the example for oil pollution. Now think what may happen, what could be the likely impacts of that. So look, one thing might be this region where oil spill was there, it was a habitat for various organisms, like think about the fishes, think about all the aquatic organisms. So they will face an issue of destruction of the habitat. Habitat would be disturbed. So habitat destruction is one thing. And then what may happen? Whatever the food chains that were there in this region, obviously due to destruction of the habitat, some animals will die. When some animals will die, obviously food chains will get disrupted. So that is one thing. And if habitat is destructed and food chains are disrupted, so that may lead to detrimental issues, that may lead to a detrimental situation in the marine region. So that is one thing. Then there would be damage to the coastal reefs. Coastal reefs may get damage. So that is one thing. So then it may degrade the insulating properties of the birds and contaminated marine products. So degradation of the marine region, and thus it may pose some effect on the birds which are just having the food in this region. So all such things are like other measures you can measure, like it reduces the amount of DO levels in the water, or it chokes the respiratory system of marine animals. So you have to mention all such impacts. Okay, so you can mention all such impacts, and you can mention harmful effects of oil pollution to countries like India. They have picked and they have asked likewise. So for India, our coastal line, we have extensive coastal line. Okay, in paper 1 also we have a question on coastal line. So we have extensive coastal line. So 7,500 kilometers coastal line is there, and if there is oil pollution issue, so entire coastal land is susceptible to such things. So it may become detrimental to the such aspects. So you can mention such harmful effects of oil pollution, and you can mention. So all those things. So that's how you can conclude by mentioning some measures that you have to adapt to take off to control such oil pollution. So that is one. So that is with reference to oil pollution question. And then the next one is, most of the unemployment in India is structural in nature. Examine the methodology adapted to calculate the unemployment. So in introduction, what you have to do, basically you have to define what is unemployment, and then you have to slightly mention what are the different types of unemployment are there, and amongst that you have to mention that India, the nature of unemployment in India is mostly structural in nature, because the question itself gives you that hint. It says that mostly the nature of unemployment in India is structural in nature. So you have to highlight that, and in the next paragraph you have to mention what is structural unemployment. Okay, what is structural unemployment? Whenever there is change in the basic structure of the economy, then there arises a kind of unemployment that is known as structural unemployment. So think, when agriculture is being conducted by farmers, when there were no machines, then farmers, they themselves used to plow the lands, and where they themselves used to cultivate the fields. And due to introduction of machines, what has happened? Some farmers, they were not aware of the usage of the machines. So all of those people who doesn't have awareness related to this technological change, this structural change in the agriculture has left out so many people being unemployed. So that is an example for unemployment. And think about industries. So earlier people used to do manual labor. When big machines have been replaced by manual labor, these people are not aware of the technology, and they remain, due to lack of skills, they have remained unemployed. So they are nothing but some of the examples for structural unemployment. So you have to mention at least what is structural unemployment, and you have to quote one example so that you will highlight what is structural unemployment. Okay, then in the next subhead you have to explain the methodology followed in India to compute this one. So that is one important thing. So then you have to mention some of the shortcomings and suggest some measures to overcome such things. So that is one thing which you have to do. So here, what are the various methodology adapted in India? Means in India, for every 10 years we will calculate the census. So when we are calculating the census, what we will do? We will go for calculating data related to various aspects. There, one thing is that we will also calculate the unemployed data. So that is one method used in India. Another method is like we have National Sample Survey Office, so NSSO. So NSSO will regularly conduct the surveys related to various things. So there, calculation of unemployment data is one thing. Okay, so that is one thing. Then we have other survey called PLFS survey, Periodic Labor Force Survey. So this survey also tries to calculate the unemployment data. So that is one thing. And then labor bureau surveys are there. So you have to just mention these things and you have to highlight the method or how they will calculate the unemployment in India. So these are one thing. And then what measures you can take means you can suggest some measures like enhanced frequency and timeliness of the surveys. Usually if you see in census data, it is conducted for 10 years once. How can we have an accurate data? Like for example, if what's the population of India? If we say still we say 121 crores. There is no conduction of recent census. So in reality, if we say it has already crossed 140 crores. So such gaps would be there. And if you don't go for timely conduction of such data or such things, obviously there would be inaccuracy in the data. So that should not happen. So for that, what we have to do? We have to timely conduct these surveys. So that is one thing. Okay. Likewise, you have to mention and you have to highlight some of the measures like this. Okay. So that is one part. So finally, you can conclude the answer by providing some measures that you can take. Okay, so you can have this as conclusion. So I hope like you will get the PDF, so you can just see what kind of conclusion you can just give. Okay, so that's how you can conclude the answer. So that is one question. So that was a straightforward question. And next question is distinguish between the care economy and monetized economy, and how can care economy be brought in with the monetized economy through women empowerment. So here you have to understand what is care economy first and what is monetized economy first. Okay, so the question is trying to ask you directly distinguish. So remember, usually students will not do, and you don't do this. As I have said, you winners don't do different things. They do things differently. Okay, things differently, same things in a different manner they will do. So when all others are making a mistake, you don't do that. So whenever the question is asking about distinguish, you have to highlight the differences in a systematic manner by using tabular column. Tabular column. When you use the tabular column, it shows and it gives an examiner that you are writing things in a systematic and an organized manner. Okay, so likewise, so that you have to do whenever you see distinguish, so go for giving a tabular column. So in introduction, you can mention or define what is care economy and what is monetized economy. And in body portion, the first thing is that you can enumerate the differences between both. Okay, enumerate by using a tabular column. This you have to do. Okay, must and should. That is one thing. So then explain how care economy can be integrated with the monetized economy in another subhead. Placing subheads plays crucial role in answer writing. Crucial role means when you mention that differences, for example, you see here, differences between care economy and monetized economy. If you keep that subhead, obviously examiner will understand that this particular student has understood the demand of the question. It gives a positive impression. And for example, when you keep the heading that how care economy can be integrated with monetized economy. So for this, integration of care economy with monetized economy. If you keep that subhead, obviously examiner will get impressed. He feels, okay, this particular student has understood the demand properly. And when we are keeping such subheads, obviously it would be one indication that you might not be writing any kind of uh, any unrelevant or irrelevant things. So that gives a positive impression. Okay, likewise. So try to use such things. So basically, if you see what is the care economy, what is the care economy? So care economy, it usually consists of, it focuses on providing some of the services related to health care. Health care. We are talking about health care. So think about doctors, think about nurses, think about the healthcare professionals. So what they do? Obviously, they will involve in such kind of activities. And think about education, think about caregiving, like we have various old age homes, various daycare facilities, child daycare facilities, all such things. Okay, so they will come under care economy. Okay, so simply, even if you talk from the perspective of the unpaid labor work that is done by family members, so usually whatever the contributions that are being done by the women in the households, it is not being calculated, that is unpaid. So if we talk from the perspective of mother's contribution in a family, it is invaluable. It is invaluable. And will anyone pay for that? Will anyone pay for that? And think, for example, let's say a mother will generally, what happens in houses, in homes, mother will cook food for the family members, and mother will do all domestic works like washing dishes, all such kind of things, washing clothes, all such things she will do. So we won't pay for mother. But same thing when you just hire a maid, when you just hire a domestic helper. So then for cooking, you might be paying 1,500 to 2,000 rupees per head. Are you paying that? And for washing the clothes and for washing the utensils, you might be paying 1,500 per head. Per head, I am saying, and not on entire family, I am saying. Per head. If you happen to live in, as your students, when you live with like two to three students are living at one go, for cooking itself, you have to provide 4,500 or 5,000 to the cook. So think how much you are paying. But these things are not being given to the mothers or likewise. So such kind of unpaid work, it is also part and parcel of caregiving. So that also constitutes. Okay. So that is one thing. So usually what would be the emphasis of care economy means care the emphasis in care economy would be more about the care rather than profit. So they won't stress or emphasize more on the profit. Rather, they will focus on the care, providing the care likewise. So simple housewives or nursing jobs, so all other these things, they will come under that. Yes, pink collar jobs. So all other they can come under the care economy. So monetized economy. So if you talk basically from monetized economy, so economy which is revolving around the buying and selling of the goods or such organized or formal economy. So that constitutes under monetized economy, which constitutes that thing. So here prime emphasis would be there on the profit, making profit. Profit is the motto likewise. And then retail markets, e-commerce are like all other things which comes under the economy, they'll come under monetized economy. Okay, so that is one thing. So motto here would be primarily not driven by the monetary transactions, whereas here transactions are driven by profit and market forces. So that is one another difference. So then labor force participation. What would be the labor force participation? So you have to mention, like for example, it involves a mix of paid professionals and unpaid professionals. Paid professionals, like for example, nurses and caregivers, they are paid, and unpaid caregivers like family members. So such things you have to mention. And here it would be mostly paid. Like think about the employees in IT field or formal employees or salaried employees, all of them are part and parcel of monetized economy. Monetized means related to monetary aspects. So that is one thing. So such things you have to mention. And what are their contributions with reference to GDP? GDP's contribution, it is mostly unaccounted. Think about the unpaid labor. So that is mostly, that won't be accounted, that won't be calculated in GDP. So whereas the monetized economy, it would be contributed and calculated in the GDP. So likewise, you have to mention some points, differences. So then you have to mention how it can be integrated with the monetized economy. Okay, what are the various steps that we can take? Likewise. So what various steps we can take means, we can just adapt some skill development programs. We have a lot of skill development programs. We can adapt some skill development programs and we can integrate the care economy with the monetized economy. Likewise. So you can mention such things like income generation activities through self-help groups. So have you heard of Kudumbashri initiative? Kudumbashri in Kerala? In Kerala, there is an initiative called Kudumbashri. So it's a kind of shopping malls. They will just and they will sell all the products there. So such kind of things you have to mention. Okay. So with the help of self-help groups, or you have to mention all such points. So how you can interlink the care economy with the monetized economy. So thus, you can address the second part of the answer. Okay. So finally, you can conclude by highlighting the need to recognize the care economy. Usually, when we are talking about GDP, this is one thing which is left. So care economy is grossly left. So you can highlight the importance or significance of care economy. So incorporation of contributions of care economy in GDP, we have to just think about that. Okay, so that is one important thing. So likewise, so that is with that question. And then, what are direct and indirect subsidies provided to farm sector in India? Okay, and discuss the issues raised by WTO in relation to agricultural subsidies. Okay, so is there any need to discuss this question? No, because we have already done in the class itself. So in introduction, you can define what is subsidy, and then you can mention types of farm subsidies, and then in the connecting paragraph, then you can define what are direct farm subsidies and indirect farm subsidies. Okay, then in the body you can explain what are direct farm subsidies. You can provide examples and you can say that. And what are indirect farm subsidies, you can provide examples and you can explain. So that is one thing. So then in the next portion, you can explain various agricultural subsidies announced by WTO. So we have amber box subsidy, green box subsidies, and blue box subsidies. So there you can mention concerns raised by WTO. Likewise. Okay, so these things you have to do. So direct subsidies, you can mention definition, you can provide, under that you can provide such examples. So input subsidies, it's a direct subsidy. Input subsidy means subsidy on seeds, subsidy on fertilizers, subsidy on chemicals, subsidy on pesticides, insecticides, subsidy on the electricity, subsidy on the irrigation equipment. So all of them will constitute under the direct. Okay, and then we can have some direct income supports. Direct income support like PM Kisan scheme we have discussed. In every crop season we will get 6,000 rupees. So in every year. So that is one thing. So that is one thing. So we have other schemes like Kalia scheme in Odisha, Raitu Bandhu scheme in Telangana. So you can mention such things which are providing direct income support. So it is also a direct subsidy. Subsidy is basically nothing but it's the financial assistance given to the farmers. Okay, likewise. So we can also mention about the minimum support price or fair remunerative price. So all such things, and we can conclude the direct subsidies. Then indirect subsidies. So you can mention about indirect subsidies and you can highlight some things likewise. So then what are WTO's agro subsidies? You have to mention what is green box subsidy, what is blue box subsidy, and what is amber box subsidy. And then you have to highlight issues raised by WTO in relation to agricultural subsidies. So what are the various issues? One issue is that trade distortion and unfair competition. So when subsidies are not in a particular range, obviously it may lead to international trade distortion and it may raise the issues of unfair competition in the market. So one thing, okay. Then there was classification of the subsidies, and various countries are flouting this classification, and they are just in each. For example, the green box subsidies are unlimited, and the amber box subsidies, they are allowed to some extent, like only 5% of these things can be allowed in developing countries and 10% can be allowed in developing countries. Likewise, there is cap. So here what will happen? The countries are floating such rules. So that is one concern from WTO. Other thing is like there is an impact on the global trade. So that was one thing. So then non-compliance with WTO rules, whatever the rules that have been stipulated by WTO, they are being grossly outlooked by the countries. So that is one issue. So these are some issues. So likewise, you have to highlight the issue and you have to explain them, how they are being floated by various countries. Likewise, okay. So that is one thing. So then look at this question, the lengthiest question but simplest question. But thing is, you need to have technical knowledge. But in classes, we have also discussed that, and in your WCR also, we have discussed about Chandrayaan 3. Have you attended WCR classes? Okay. So in WCR, there was a special discussion on Chandrayaan 3. So where you might have learned all these facts. So in introduction, you have to mention about Chandrayaan 3, its aims and objectives. Okay. So then you have to mention the main task of the Chandrayaan 3 as soft landing. So that was the demand of the question. Okay. So you have to mention soft landing. So soft landing on the south pole of the moon is the important task that has been picked by the Chandrayaan 3, which has been failed which was failed in Chandrayaan 2 mission. So you have to mention that. And in next paragraph, you have to mention what is soft landing. You have to mention what is soft landing. And there you have to mention what are the various countries that have achieved the feat of soft landing on the moon. So that is also one thing. So in introduction itself, you have to mention all those things, because the question's chief demand in introduction is that thing. Okay, so that is one thing. So then in body portion, you have to explain different subsystems used in Chandrayaan 3 mission. Okay, so then explain the role of virtual control center. So this is another part of the question. So in introduction, you mention the first part. In body portion, you mention these two parts. And in conclusion, you can mention future endeavors of ISRO. So you can also mention, like, after Chandrayaan 3, ISRO has also launched Aditya L1, and it is also planning to launch the first human flight to the space, Gaganyaan mission. And then you can mention there are some other ambitious programs like Shukrayaan. So success of Chandrayaan 3 will give a big impetus and encouragement to carry out all such future endeavors. So likewise, you can say, and you can conclude the answer. Okay, so that's how. So here you can mention what are the aims and objectives. Main task is soft landing. So then another task is reaching to the south pole of the moon. So reaching to the south pole of the moon and having soft landing on that, it is a Herculean task. It is a kind of difficult task, because the south pole of the moon is rugged. It has rugged topography. Topography is not plain, it's rugged, rough surface is there. So landing there was a troublesome issue. So that was one thing. So you have to mention that objectives, main tasks. So what countries have landed successfully on moon? So these are the three countries. In 1959, we have Soviet Union of Russia. So Russia has achieved this feat. So they have sent Luna 2, Luna mission. So that was one thing. So the next, in 1969, United States of America. So it has sent Apollo 11. So Apollo 11 has reached and it has achieved that feat, soft landing, not on South Pole, but on Moon likewise. And then in 2013, China has sent its Chang'e 3 mission, Chang'e 3. So in Chang'e 3, we have U-22, U-2, Y-U-T-U, U-2, 2. So that was the rover of Chang'e 3. So you have to mention all such things because question itself asks about that factual data. And then in the next portion, you have to highlight various subsystems that are being under this. So you can mention the propulsion module, various technical aspects like propulsion module is made up of shape. So what is the purpose of this shape? So there is, if possible, you can write the full forms or directly you can mention the acronyms because they were in short form. So likewise, so if we talk from lander's perspective, subsystems are like Ramba is one system, Chaste is one system, ELSA. So full forms you can mention or you can mention the short forms directly. So what are the objectives or what is the purpose of them? So Pragyan rover, it is made up of LEBs and APXs. So you can mention the full forms and you can mention their purpose. So even if you happen to see the achievements, we have found this already. So Chandrayaan 3 mission has found that there are these elements, there are these elemental traces have been found out. So you have to mention, you can mention in the conclusion that, so to some extent already we have got the evidences of the some elements, some sort of findings by Chandrayaan 3. Likewise, you can mention and you can highlight. So that's how you can conclude the answer. So that was related to Chandrayaan 3. Then adoption of electric vehicles. Electric vehicles in comparison of electric vehicles with combustion engine vehicles and role of them in reducing carbon emissions. Okay, so in introduction, you have to bring in the current context of adoption of electric vehicles. So we are moving to adapt the electric vehicles. Okay, so that is one thing you can mention, like what are electric vehicles and current context. Okay, then in introduction, you can highlight the role of electric vehicles in reducing the carbon emissions. So how electric vehicles will help in reducing the carbon emissions when we use the normal fuels like the fossil fuels, petrol, diesel. So they are well known for emitting carbon. So in electric vehicles, how we can reduce that carbon emissions? So that is one part of the question. Next part is discussing about the key benefits of electric vehicles. So these are two parts. Okay, so two subheads you can keep and two subheads under that you can write. So what is the role of e-vehicles in reducing the carbon emissions? So for that, one direct thing is that they help in reduction in carbon emissions. Compared with fossil fuel engines or normal combustion engines, obviously greater portion of emissions would be there. Whereas in e-vehicles, we won't use such fuel itself. When we don't use fuel itself, then from where carbon emissions can be there. Are you getting that? So that is one thing. So then next, reduced tailpipe emission. Tailpipe emission means when you see, you will have for bike, you will have the silencer, such things. So from where we will get the smoke. So such emissions will not be there from the electric vehicles. Likewise, so decreased carbon intensity of electricity. So life cycle emissions reduction. I mention such kind of things. So that's how we can reduce the carbon emissions. Then you can mention the benefits of the electric vehicles. So benefits, if we talk, there can be energy related benefits, there can be mechanical benefits, and there can be environmental benefits. So systematically you have to highlight these benefits. Okay, so what are the energy related? So high fuel efficiency are such points you have to mention. So mechanical benefits. So here, if we talk basic difference from normal general combustion machines and electric vehicles, in electric vehicles there won't be any gearboxes or torque converters. Gearbox, think of a bike, so a bike generally will have a gearbox, and we will have that gear things. But think of the e-scooters. They won't have that gear system. So normally it functions like scooty without any gearbox. Likewise, even in the four-wheelers also, gearbox will not be there for e-vehicle sometimes. So that is one thing. So such advantages you have to mention, and environmental benefits obviously you have to mention. So likewise, systematically you have to mention the differences. Okay, so that is one thing. So that is with e-vehicles. So then comment on the National Wetland Conservation Program initiated by Government of India and name few wetlands of international importance. So here the question is straightforward. So in the introduction, you have to define what wetlands are. What are wetlands? And what is the ecological significance of wetlands? Ecological significance. So wetlands and significance of wetlands. In the introduction, you can mention that portion, that part. And then in the body portion, you can mention the aims, objectives, and other aspects related to National Wetland Conservation Program. We have a National Wetland Conservation Program. So you have to mention about them. Okay. And then you have to enumerate some of the wetlands of international importance, Ramsar sites. Okay. So you have to do that. So that is one thing. So we have discussed in the class also about National Wetland Conservation Program. So actually you have to highlight some points like when this NBW National Wetland Conservation Program and National Lake Conservation Program has been integrated. So such kind of facts you can mention. Okay, so the basic aims and objectives you can mention. So aim is holistic conservation and restoration of wetlands. So program itself, it is conservation program. So aim is conservation and restoration of wetlands. So what are the objectives, what are the approaches, and what is the nodal ministry? Such points you can mention. Okay, so that is related to National Wetland Conservation Program. And then next point, in the next part, you can mention some of the examples of wetlands of international importance. There you can systematically mention that at present India has 75 wetlands of international importance which have been enlisted under Ramsar site network. So under that you can mention recent examples or any example. They haven't mentioned about any recent thing only, likewise. They have mentioned simply. So you can pick any of the Ramsar sites and you can mention. So that's how that question. So this question, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has predicted global sea level rise of about 1 meter. And what would be the impact on India and other countries in the Indian Ocean region? So the question is directly asking about the IPCC report. So in introduction, you can mention about IPCC's 6th assessment reported data. So what was the data? What was the data that has been given under IPCC's 6th report? Okay, so Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Okay, so then in the body portion, you can systematically highlight the impacts of sea level rise in India and other countries in the Indian Ocean region. So particularly, specifically, it is focusing on Indian Ocean region, IORA. Then you can also mention some measures in the second part of the answer, likewise. So what kind of impacts that we have? So you can highlight the impacts in a systematic way. You have to highlight the social impacts, political impacts, economic impacts, and environmental impacts. Okay, so this is how you have to categorize your answer. You have to keep these subheading like environmental impacts. Under environmental impacts, you have to mention all these like, so rise in sea level may lead to coastal erosion. Coastal areas may get eroded. So that is one thing. Then wetland degradation. So those wetlands which are there with the ocean and the fresh water. So mangroves, such kind of things. Wetland degradation may be one issue. Like habitat loss and species, impact on the species. So that can be one impact. And then saltwater intrusion, coral bleaching, all such kind of things are nothing but environmental impacts. You have to mention. So, and you have to explain at least in one liner or two liner. So then economic impacts. if sea level rises, obviously water will intrude into the coastal areas. So that may damage the property or infrastructure. So that is one thing. Okay. Then there can be maintenance costs may get increased. So we have to install various other infrastructure. So such things, they are economic impacts. Social impacts, you can mention social impacts like when there is intrusion of water into the coastal areas. These people have to be rehabilitated to other areas. So that's, it may lead to displacement of the people. So it may rise climate refugees issues. Like we have other refugees like Rohingyas. They were one type of refugees because of the military resentment in their country from Myanmar. In the similar fashion, there might be the problem of climate refugees may arise. Okay, so likewise, so you have to mention such things. So political impacts. So likewise, you have to mention the impacts. And then what are the measures taken by the government of India with regards to this? So we have also discussed this in the GS paper 1 also. Coastline, significance of coastline and measures taken by India to save the coastlines. We have discussed that. Okay, so these are the various measures. So we have launched or we have developed coastal regulation zone notification. We have done that, coastal regulation zones, and integrated coastal zone management project. We have adapted one another project, and coastal management information system. This is another initiative. Okay, like National Action Plan on Climate Change, NAPCC. So this is another thing that we have done. So likewise, we have taken all the measures to preserve and conserve the coastal regions. So we can mention all of those things and we can highlight. So likewise, we can enumerate various measures taken in India. So these are related to the climate change question. Okay, likewise. So that's how we can conclude, and we can highlight the need to take care with respect to climate change. Okay, you can mention further aspects like UNFCCC goals, all such things you can highlight, and you can say that. So keeping all such kind of impacts in mind, it is a dire need to think sternly about the climate change and global warming. So all these things you have to highlight and you can conclude the answer. Okay, so likewise, these are different questions related to the economy, agriculture, science and technology, and environment and disaster management. So rest, there are 4 questions from internal security. Okay, so we'll also discuss like that part would be discussed by Gyan sir. Okay, so did you get an orientation of how the questions have been asked? And now, what lesson or what are the various learnings that you can take out from this section? So what are the various lessons or what are the various takeouts that we can take? Means one thing is that you should not rely on any particular subject again. So with reference to GS3, you have to give equal emphasis on all the subjects: economy, science and technology, environment ecology, agriculture, internal security, environment ecology. In mains, even 1 mark also makes you to this zone or that zone. 1 mark also can be a game changer. So as every section holds equal importance, do not neglect any section. That is one thing. And other thing is that it also tries to highlight the significance of current affairs. And it also highlights the significance of reading newspapers. And it also highlights the significance of interlinking static portion with dynamic portion of the syllabus. So static portion, how you have to interlink the static portion with the dynamic portion, that is also important. Other thing is that you have to have specific knowledge. This is one thing, and you also have to have in-depth knowledge of one particular aspect. So in-depth knowledge you have to keep. So this is one another take out. And apart from this, what you need to have is you need to have the knowledge of data and statistics. Data and statistics. For this, you try to have a detailed account on various reports, various indices that are being regularly published by famous international organizations. So that is one important task that you have to do simultaneously with your preparation. Okay, so do not take all the reports at one go and read. It is very haphazard task. It is very Herculean task. So take a task. Daily try to learn about one international organization and pick the reports and pick the indices and try to collect the data. So collecting data simply one day by day, it's very easy. So pick each section. For example, talk about the GDP of the nation. So think about the contributions of primary sector, collect the data, keep it with you. Then study one day, in the next day, study about the data related to secondary sector and then collect the data, keep it with you. Then in the next day, keep the data and collect the data related to tertiary sector, contributions of various sectors in tertiary sector likewise. So that's how. Then when you go to agriculture, try to collect the data related to agriculture and keep things in a systematic manner. Okay, data collection is very, very, very important in paper 3. Okay, so do not commit a mistake what all other commits. Okay, so remember that if you want to remain as a successful person, you have to do that. Winners don't do different things, they do things differently. So keep this logic in mind and do not commit the same old mistakes that are committed by everyone. Okay, so this is the single thing that you have to remember with respect to the paper 3. Okay, so usually everyone will neglect paper 3. Again, I am saying you do not do that. Okay, so if you are stern with your success, focus equally on all the papers. Okay, so that's all, and within a short span, like Gyan sir will take other portion. Okay, so that's all for today. So let's meet in later. Okay, thank you all.
Good morning online. Right. Right. So here we are going to discuss today the internal security section of GS paper 3, and you guys have already done with all the sections, rest of the sections of the GS paper 3 other than internal security, right? So you all must have had the look of the paper, right? So how many questions from internal security? Oh, okay. And do you know the trend analysis also? But how many questions asked in the past, or the on an average how many questions are asked? अच्छा कल हाँ नहीं मैं ऑफलाइन से ही पूछ रहा हूँ बताओ ठीक है तो जैसे कल हमने GS2 किया था ठीक है तो आपने देखा होगा कि कौन सा पेपर ऐसा था जो बिल्कुल कंसिस्टेंट था every the past 5 years we found that actually the similar number of questions with similar set of similar weightage dedicated to which of the section no IR में देखा था ना consistently 4 question were asked for the past 5 years ठीक है and the same marks ठीक है तो बिल्कुल similar यहाँ पर ठीक है internal security may be similar 4 questions with 50 marks are dedicated to internal security. There is no surprise, no change. Okay. One more similarity with internal security is that the internal security this time also did not ask about any specific scheme or initiative that can create trouble for you guys, right? So इसलिए बहुत ही generic question. Like there is no specific like define the cyberdrome project. ठीक है तो क्या अब you should know what is Cyberdrome project, but there is no such surprise. It means it makes the paper very easier. Why? Because the nature of the question is very generic, right? For example, if you are asked about the what are the internal security threats, तो आपको threats ही केवल बताने हैं, ठीक है. अगर आपसे पूछते कि कोई पर्टिकुलर इनिशिएटिव लाइक define the PMLA Act or examine the PMLA Act, so you should know the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, right? So that make the question more specific and more troublesome for you guys, right? That is why if you have gone through the entire paper, GS paper 3, you will find that the internal security section was much easier than other sections again, right? So this is actually the cherry on the cake, right? So first we will see the, have you seen the question paper? Okay, so you must have gone through the question, nature of the question also. So क्वेश्चन नंबर 19 20, चलो पहले ये खुल गया तो ये देख लो, ठीक है. तो 15 मार्क से स्टार्ट करते हैं. तो क्वेश्चन है व्हाट आर द इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी चैलेंजेस बीइंग फेस्ड बाय इंडिया, ठीक है. तो जब इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी पढ़ोगे तो द एक्चुअली दिस इज द जनरल टॉपिक, the what are the challenges faced by India with respect to internal security threats, ठीक. So internal external they are very generic topics, right? So similar question पूछा गया. तो अगर कोई ये बोले कि ये नोट से आया है या फिर ये बुक में, ये सब जगह दिया होगा. अगर इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी के नोट्स उठाओगे तो देखोगे चैलेंजेस तो मेंशन किए गए, ठीक है. तो बहुत ही जेनरिक क्वेश्चन. Give out the role of, now this is the specific, give out the role of central intelligence and investigative agency tasked to counter such threats, right? So again there is no specific agency or there is no specific initiative of any of the agency is asked here. So simply you have to mention about the role of the central intelligence and investigative agency. So you should know how many number of agencies which are there to protect the internal security system, ठीक है, in India, and what are their mandates, that's all, ठीक है. तो whether they are coming up with very any initiative or what are actually they are contributing to the protection of the internal security threats, ठीक है. तो next question देखते हैं. तो बहुत simple है फिर से, और ये 15 मार्क का है. Now give out the major sources of terror funding in India, right, and the efforts being made to curtail these sources. तो first part में आपको क्या डिस्कस करना है कि what are the major sources of terror funding, right? So when you started your preparation, you also had some idea about the terrorism, right? तो ऐसा नहीं कि प्रिपरेशन स्टार्ट के तब पता चला. तो टेररिज्म इज वाइडली स्प्रेड फिनोमिना अक्रॉस इंडिया. सबको पता है कि जम्मू कश्मीर और जो जितना भी हम नॉर्थ ईस्ट का बॉर्डर है वहां से टेररिज्म हमारा जो स्प्रेड होता है. तो अब अगर स्प्रेड भी हुआ तो आपको इतना जनरल आइडिया भी है कि सोर्सेज क्या है फंडिंग के. नहीं कुछ है, अगर नहीं न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ते हो तो मूवीज तो देखते ही होगे, तब भी पता होगा कि एक्चुअली जो टेररिज्म या जितने भी थ्रेट्स हैं तो उनको फंडिंग कहां से मिल रही होती है, पैसा कहां से आ रहा होता है, ठीक है. तो बहुत जनरल क्वेश्चन पूछा है कि गिव आउट द मेजर सोर्सेज ऑफ टेरर फंडिंग इन इंडिया एंड द एफर्ट्स बीइंग मेड टू कर्टेल दीस सोर्सेज. तो अब यहाँ पे कुछ भी स्पेसिफिक, आपको मेजर सोर्सेज बताने हैं कि टेरर फंडिंग के सोर्सेज के, ठीक है. एंड सेकेंड पार्ट इज द इन द लाइट ऑफ दिस, मतलब आपको कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्या रखना है कि टेररिज्म स्पेसिफिक पार्ट है, ऑर्गेनाइज्ड क्राइम का एक स्पेसिफिक टेररिज्म एस्पेक्ट लिया गया टेररिज्म, ठीक है. और उसमें इन द लाइट ऑफ दिस ऑल्सो डिस्कस द एम एंड ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ द नो मनी फॉर टेररिज्म, ठीक है. तो पूरे पेपर में जितना भी इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी है इसमें एक स्पेसिफिक कॉन्फ्रेंस के बारे में पूछा गया, नो मनी फॉर टेररिज्म. तो एम देखो, एम एंड ऑब्जेक्टिव, दैट इज व्हाई इट इज रिक्वायर्ड टू गो थ्रू द करंट अफेयर्स. दो द आउट ऑफ 4 क्वेश्चन it is only one which is specifically asked about the current affairs development, ठीक है. Otherwise, and also you should not avoid reading newspaper because of the generic questions asked in the newspaper in this exam, right? But you should ready with the initiatives, conferences, acts, policies, so that if it is asked you are ready. And for that you need to update yourself through these initiatives through either internet sources or newspaper, right? So you should go through every time the major intervention done by the government, ठीक है. तो अब देखो नो मनी फॉर टेरर कॉन्फ्रेंस, लेकिन अब अगर हो सकता है कि इफ यू आर नॉट एबल टू रिकलेक्ट द डेवलपमेंट्स, ठीक है, लाइक कॉन्फ्रेंस पढ़ा तो था लेकिन याद नहीं आ रहा, क्योंकि कॉन्फ्रेंस तो होती रहती है तो याद नहीं आ रहा. तो एटलीस्ट व्हेन यू when you have idea of the concept of funding related to terror, then you should have some points की what will be the point of conference. ठीक है, तो आप अगर कुछ भी नहीं आता है तो आप इतना तो आइडिया होगा ना आपको कि इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में इंडिया ने इंसिस्ट किया होगा, परसिस्ट किया होगा रिगार्डिंग द स्टॉप टेरर फंडिंग. ठीक है, और जो फंडिंग है उसके लिए आपको इतना भी छोटा मोटा आइडिया होगा कि फंडिंग कहां से हो रही है, किन किन एरियाज से आती है फंडिंग यहाँ पर, ठीक है, इंडिया में, तो वो आपको मेंशन करना होगा. लेकिन दैट इज एक्चुअली द समथिंग इज बेटर देन नथिंग. ठीक है, बट यू शुड नॉट अडॉप्ट दैट आइडिया. बट rather than avoiding such topics कि अगर कोई कॉन्फ्रेंस से आता है या कोई पॉलिसी से आता है तो एटलीस्ट डू नॉट स्किप दैट क्वेश्चन. यू शुड हैव सम आइडिया बेस्ड ऑन योर कॉन्सेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी. यू कैन मेंशन सम ऑफ द पॉइंट्स, फ्यू ऑफ द पॉइंट्स. ठीक है, लेकिन ये आपको ऐसे कॉन्फ्रेंस, अब देखो दैट क्वेश्चन प्रोवाइड गिव्स दैट आइडिया दैट यू शुड नॉट स्किप सच न्यूज. ठीक है, कंसीडरिंग दिस दैट इज वेरी माइनर टॉपिक. ठीक है, कि छोटी कॉन्फ्रेंस है तो क्या करें पढ़ के, इतना डिटेल में पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन आप देखोगे कि यहाँ पे पूछा गया है ऐसे क्वेश्चन. ठीक है, तो नाउ वन बाय वन वी विल डिस्कस आल्सो these questions. ठीक है, what should be the content of this question. And now coming to winning of hearts and minds in terrorism affected areas is an essential step in restoring the trust of the population. ठीक है, तो किस रेस्पेक्ट में बोला गया है? Discuss the measures adopted by the government in this respect as part of the conflict resolution in Jammu and Kashmir. ठीक है, तो those who have done with the internal security classes, ठीक है, तो आपको पता होगा शीर्षक ने पढ़ाया था कि कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रेजोल्यूशन. ठीक है, एक टर्म है कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रेजोल्यूशन के. देयर आर मेनी एस्पेक्ट, देयर आर मेनी टैक्टिक्स टू हैव द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रेजोल्यूशन. ठीक है, उसमें एक होता है कॉम्बैट, एक नॉन कॉम्बैट. ठीक है, तो नॉन कॉम्बैट का पार्ट होता है जिसमें WHM. ठीक है, यानी कि विनिंग ऑफ WHM, तो विनिंग ऑफ हार्ट्स एंड माइंड, यानी कि ऐसे मेजर्स लेना, ठीक है, दैट कैन एक्चुअली सेटिस्फाई द टारगेटेड पॉपुलेशन. जो भी टारगेटेड पॉपुलेशन है दैट कैन एक्चुअली अकोमोडेट विद द कॉन्फ्लिक्टिंग पार्टीज. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल सिमिलर दिस क्वेश्चन इज आस्क्ड विद रेफरेंस टू जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, बट दिस वुड बी अप्लाइड फॉर नक्सलिज्म also and the conflict in northeastern region also. ठीक है, तो यानी कि when you had or any party had, like for example now the two party with respect to the northeast region, तो northeast की जो northeast की population है और mainstream इंडियन गवर्नमेंट. ठीक है, वैसे ही नक्सलिज्म और इंडियन गवर्नमेंट की फाइट है. ठीक है, आपने देखा होगा नक्सलिज्म के अटैक जो पब्लिक प्रमाइसेस में उस पे बहुत कम होते हैं, लार्जली किस पे होते हैं, जो गवर्नमेंटल प्रमाइसेस हैं. तो वो अटैक किस पे करते हैं, उनका कॉन्फ्लिक्ट किसके साथ में, गवर्नमेंट के साथ में. तो नाउ दे यूज लोकल पब्लिक आल्सो इन देयर कॉन्फिडेंस. दैट इज व्हाई दिस द रोल ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट इज नॉट ओनली हैविंग द कॉम्बैट रेजोल्यूशन विद रेस्पेक्ट टू द पार्टीज हु आर इन्वॉल्वड इन द वायलेंस. ठीक है, other than that the government target is to win the confidence of people also. और वो कैसे होगा, we have to come up with the policies which can win the hearts and minds of the people. और वो कैसे होगा, that would be done by major policies which are related to the development of that region, and their development will not only confined to the physical infrastructure but also their socio-cultural डोमेन. ठीक है, तो सोशो कल्चरल डोमेन में क्या हो जाएगा, उनके कल्चर को प्रमोट करना. कल्चरल आपने देखा होगा कि पोस्ट 2019 पहले भी होता था, बट बिकॉज ऑफ द रिस्ट्रिक्टेड हैंड्स ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट. ठीक है, अब क्या हुआ, 370 रिमूव कर दिया गया. तो नाउ दोस क्लॉजेस विच आर और दोस पॉलिसीज, आपने 19 के पहले जब कभी पॉलिसीज पढ़ते होगे तो देखते होगे कि ये पॉलिसी इनिशिएटिव लॉन्च हुआ है, गवर्नमेंट ने लॉन्च किया है, एंड वो सब जगह अप्लाइड है एक्सेप्ट जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, बिकॉज जम्मू एंड कश्मीर विल रेटिफाई दैट स्कीम एंड आफ्टर दैट इट विल बी लॉन्च्ड. बात समझ में आ रही है. तो अब क्या है, सब जगह जितनी भी स्कीम इंडिया में इंडियन पब्लिक के लिए, सिमिलरली दैट विल बी अप्लाइड टू जम्मू एंड कश्मीर आल्सो. तो दो डेवलपमेंट स्कीम्स विल बी नाउ अप्लाइड टू जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, एंड यू विल फाइंड दैट नाउ दोज एक्टिविटीज रिलेटेड टू फिजिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एज वेल एज द socio-cultural and economic domain also that is being promoted by Indian government. तो आप देखोगे कि अब now you will find lesser news with respect to the involvement of public. राइट। तो आप देखोगे स्टोन पेल्टिंग के इवेंट्स बहुत कम हो गए, पहले के तो हर दिन न्यूज़पेपर में आया करते थे कर्फ्यू लग रहा है, ठीक है। तो ये जो इंटरवेंशन है दैट इज कॉल्ड दिस इंटरवेंशन एज द विनिंग ऑफ हार्ट्स एंड माइंड्स। तो धीरे धीरे पब्लिक का कॉन्फिडेंस गेन करना, ठीक है। तो जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक बहुत बड़ा एग्जाम्पल है कि कितने भी साल हम पे रूल किया हो ब्रिटिशर्स ने, है ना, तो क्या वो पब्लिक का कॉन्फिडेंस विन कर पाए थे? नहीं। तो तभी तो जाने के बाद खुशी मनाई गई, ठीक है। और मुगल्स के टाइम भी एक ऐसा पीरियड था जब किसी मुगल एम्परर ने ट्राइड टू विन द कॉन्फिडेंस ऑफ द पब्लिक, ठीक है। एंड ड्यूरिंग दैट एज पब्लिक एक्चुअली अकोमोडेटेड बाय द गवर्नमेंट ड्यूरिंग द मुगल पीरियड आल्सो। तो हु वाज दैट एम्परर? दैट इज अकबर, ठीक है। तो अकबर की पॉलिसी थी कि लोगों का दिल जीतना होगा, क्योंकि शासन करने के लिए अगर रूल करोगे तो केवल लॉ, केवल पुलिस स्टेट से काम नहीं चलेगा, क्योंकि जैसे ही पुलिस स्टेट वीक होगा फिर क्या होगा, दैट एम्पायर वुड बी डिसइंटीग्रेटेड, ठीक है। और यही ब्रिटिशर्स के साथ में भी था कि ब्रिटिशर्स नेवर ट्राइड टू विन द कॉन्फिडेंस ऑफ द पीपल, ठीक है। दैट वाज पुलिस स्टेट, right? So that is why they were lot of tribal movements, right? Peasants movements and national movements also, freedom struggle that is ultimately led to the Indian independence of India, ठीक है। तो freedom struggle continuously we had studied. So that is because these British policies, those who were related to development also, they were confined to their own interest only. They were not related to the targeted to the interest of the public, ठीक है, और द वेलफेयर ऑफ द पब्लिक, ठीक है। तो पब्लिक के वेलफेयर के लिए कोई ऐसी पॉलिसी वो नहीं लेगा जिससे कि पब्लिक उनसे अटैच हो, ठीक है। तो सिमिलरली यहाँ पर है कि हम अभी तक गवर्नमेंट ने कई बार ट्राई किया कि लोगों का एक कॉन्फिडेंस विन हो जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में, लेकिन क्या था कि जो पार्टीज विच आर एक्चुअली इन्वॉल्व देयर थ्रू नो फंडिंग फ्रॉम द नेबरिंग कंट्रीज, ठीक है। तो कहीं चाइना से फंडिंग भी पता चल रही है, कहीं पाकिस्तान से फंडिंग पता चल रही, तो उनके पास आर्म्स एंड अम्यूनिशन अलग अलग जगह से आ रहे थे, ठीक है। तो नाउ अब गवर्नमेंट के पास ज्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग होल्ड है, तो गवर्नमेंट कैन प्रोटेक्ट देयर डेवलपमेंट स्कीम ऑल्सो। तो अभी क्या ब्रिज बनाया और ब्रिज पे अटैक कर दिया, ठीक है। तो लेकिन अब क्या है, अब गवर्नमेंट के पास ज्यादा पावर है, तो सिक्योरिटी इक्विपमेंट्स ज्यादा डिप्लॉय किए गए हैं, इसलिए अब उन डेवलपमेंट्स का हमें रिजल्ट आना शुरू हो गया, मिलना शुरू हो गया, ठीक है। लेकिन क्या है कि जो इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर वो ये है कि वो जो फिजिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर क्रिएट होगा वो दैट वुड नॉट क्रिएट ए परमानेंट इंप्रेशन, लेकिन जो लोगों का अपलिफ्टमेंट होगा, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल हम डिस्कस करेंगे कि कितनी ऑपरेशन सद्भावना, ठीक है, या फिर सुपर 30 इग्नाइटेड माइंड्स, तो सॉरी, तो ये जो स्कीम्स हैं, तो ऐसी स्कीम्स किसके लिए होंगी, जो लोगों को, यानी कि जो उनके पास डिप्रेवेशन है, यानी कि अगर उनको स्कूल जाने को नहीं मिल रहा है, कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम्स के लिए कोचिंग अवेलेबल नहीं है, तो ऐसे इंटरवेंशन जो आर्मी कर रही है, उनको बुक्स प्रोवाइड कर रही है, स्पोर्ट्स के इक्विपमेंट प्रोवाइड कर रही है, ऐसी फैसिलिटीज, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, टनल्स बन रही हैं जिससे कि अब वहाँ की इंडस्ट्री प्रमोट हो सके। तो जब लोगों का डेवलपमेंट होगा, इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट होगा, सोशल डेवलपमेंट होगा, तो क्या होगा, लोगों को कॉन्फिडेंस विन होगा और उनको समझ में आएगा कि नाउ दिस गवर्नमेंट इज एक्चुअली वर्किंग फॉर अस। तो जो नेगेटिव इंप्रेशन है, जो प्री डिफाइंड माइंडसेट है, दैट वाज क्रिएटेड बाय those anti-social elements or those radical elements, those try to radicalize the youth also कि ये गवर्नमेंट हमारे लिए वर्क नहीं करेगी, एक्चुअली इनके अपने इंटरेस्ट हैं। लेकिन अब 19 ऑनवर्ड जब उनको पता चला कि एक्चुअली वी आर बीइंग मोर फ्लरिश्ड थ्रू दीज इंटरवेंशंस, देन दे एक्चुअली हैड confidence and they try to accommodate with the government, try to accommodate their people and people try to accommodate their government also to interfere in our life, ठीक है, क्योंकि वो हमारे अपलिफ्टमेंट के लिए होगा। that is why this conflict resolution policy of winning of hearts and minds is very important, ठीक है। तो वो हमको डिस्कस करना होगा कि मेजर्स कौन कौन से अडॉप्ट किए गए एंड आवर मेजर्स शुड कन्फाइंड टू दोज पॉलिसीज ओनली। तो हमें अपने आंसर में केवल वो पार्ट्स लिखने होंगे जो विनिंग ऑफ हार्ट्स एंड माइंड से रिलेटेड हो, ठीक है। तो वी हैव टू कन्फाइन दैट पार्ट ओनली। तो याद रखना कि जब आंसर लिखेंगे तो जो डिमांड है क्वेश्चन की केवल वही मेंशन करेंगे। नाउ नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन देखते हैं क्या, द यूज ऑफ अनमैन्ड एरियल व्हीकल्स, ठीक है। तो यहाँ पर ड्रोन्स की बात हो रही है। नाउ बाय आवर एडवर्सरीज अक्रॉस द बॉर्डर्स टू फेरी आर्म्स, एम्यूनिशंस, ड्रग्स एटसेट्रा, ठीक है। तो ड्रग्स वगैरह भी सप्लाई होता है, आर्म्स एम्यूनिशन सप्लाई होता है ड्रोन के थ्रू, इज अ सीरियस थ्रेट टू द इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी और कमेंट ऑन द मेजर्स बीइंग टेकन बाय द गवर्नमेंट टू टैकल दिस थ्रेट। तो हमको दो एस्पेक्ट पे बात करनी है। पहला कि एक्चुअली ये यूएवीज जो हैं ये हमारे लिए एडवांटेजेस भी हैं और कंसर्न्स भी हैं, ठीक है। तो हमें कंसर्न वाला पार्ट यहाँ मेंशन करना है। क्यों? क्योंकि क्वेश्चन ने पूछा, कहा गया द यूज ऑफ अनमैन्ड यूएवीज बाय आवर एडवर्सरीज अक्रॉस द बॉर्डर्स टू फेरी आर्म्स एंड इज अ सीरियस threat to the internal security. So we have to validate that statement by quoting the concerns. ठीक है, तो concerns कैसे हैं, ये threat कैसे है हमारे लिए, ठीक है, और साथ साथ में comment on the measures being taken to tackle this threat. तो अब क्या है, UAV से रिलेटेड ओनली, जो हमें ड्रोन से रिलेटेड जो भी मेजर्स गवर्नमेंट ने लिए हैं वो यहाँ पर डिस्कस करने हैं कि कौन कौन से मेजर्स गवर्नमेंट ने लिए हैं अभी तक. तो क्या हमारे पास ड्रोन पॉलिसी है अभी तक है, ठीक है. और इनिशियली व्हाई वी आर लेट एक्चुअली, देखो 2021 में आपको याद होगा, अगर आपने न्यूज़पेपर कभी पढ़ा हो तो वो इंसिडेंट जम्मू का, जब जम्मू के एयर बेस पे अटैक हुआ था और भी ड्रोन से हुआ था, ठीक है, 2021. इसके पहले अभी तक क्या हो रहा था, इसके अभी तक इसके पहले ये आर्म्स एंड अम्युनिशन, ड्रग्स, ये सब पकड़े जा रहे थे, ठीक है. जैसे मैं आपको एक रिपोर्ट दिखाता हूँ, ठीक है, तो इससे आपको एक आइडिया मिलेगा कि इसके पहले ये कई बार ऐसा हुआ कि जब इंडियन आर्मी ने ये जो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन है थ्रू ड्रोन्स, ठीक है, दे कैप्चर्ड नंबर ऑफ टाइम्स, ठीक है. देखो आप स्टार्ट देखोगे तो जून, अगस्त, सितंबर, तो 5 इंसिडेंसेस केवल 2 महीने में थे ऐसे, जहां पर पुलिस रिकवर्ड क्रैश्ड हेक्साकॉप्टर ड्रोन फ्रॉम महुआ विलेज ऑफ अमृतसर पंजाब में. फिर कठुआ में मिले, जहां पे हमें ये देखो राइफल्स, गन्स, ठीक है, मोबाइल फोन्स या आर्म्स एंड एम्युनिशन, ये सब हमें मिल रहा था. लेकिन इन्होंने कभी भी, इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने कभी भी एक्सपेक्ट नहीं किया था कि नाउ ड्रोन वुड बी यूज्ड टू अटैक ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द आर्मी, ठीक है. दैट इज वाई 2021 में जो अटैक हुआ, 2021 ऑनवर्ड्स वी हैड द ड्रोन पॉलिसी. क्योंकि ड्रोन पॉलिसी इसलिए नहीं थी क्योंकि ड्रोन को जो मतलब पहले 19 ऑनवर्ड्स जब ड्रोन यहाँ पे इंडिया में स्टार्टअप्स इंट्रोड्यूस हो चुके थे, ठीक है, तो गवर्नमेंट का ये मानना था कि ये ड्रोन्स के मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को एक हद तक बैन रिस्ट्रिक्ट किया गया था. और पर्पस ये था कि हो सकता है कि ड्रोन का मिसयूज हो इंडिया में, ठीक है. तो टू रिस्ट्रिक्ट द इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट, गवर्नमेंट एक्चुअली डिड नॉट प्रमोट द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑफ ड्रोन इन इंडिया. उनको डर था कि हो सकता है कि अभी अगर देखो पॉजिटिव एस्पेक्ट लेके चलते, अगर यहाँ पे एक थोड़ा सा नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट है कि गवर्नमेंट थोड़ा अप्रहेंसिव हो गई थी कि हो सकता है कि मिसयूज ज्यादा हो और यूज कम हो. दैट इज वाई. तो अब क्या था कि इसीलिए जो डेवलपमेंट इंडस्ट्री थी, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडस्ट्री थी ड्रोन की, ठीक है, तो वो थोड़ा डिमोरलाइज हुई स्टार्टिंग में, जिससे कि अभी हम थोड़ा पीछे हो गए ड्रोन डेवलपमेंट में. जो नई टेक्नोलॉजी जो हम आज उस पर रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट की बेसिस पे अभी न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड यूएवीज थे वो प्रोड्यूस कर सकते थे, जो कि हमने इंपोर्ट किए. लेकिन जब बाद में जब ये देखा कि इसका मिसयूज जब बाहर से हो रहा है, तो जब बाहर से देखो, अभी आप अपने घर में AK-47 नहीं बनाओगे, लेकिन बाहर से टेररिस्ट AK-47 लेके आएंगे, तब क्या करोगे, बनाना पड़ेगा ना, ठीक है. सो दैट इज वाई. और अगर वो टेररिस्ट AK-47 लेके आ रहे हैं, अगर वो नहीं आते तो शायद गवर्नमेंट सोचती कि AK-47 अगर हम प्रमोट करेंगे तो हो सकता है विद इन इंडिया उसका मिसयूज हो सके. आर यू गेटिंग दैट? तो पर्सपेक्टिव यही था. लेकिन उससे क्या हुआ कि हम थोड़ा डिले हो गए टेक्नोलॉजिकल डेवलपमेंट में. तो नाउ कमिंग टू द क्वेश्चन, ठीक है, तो अब इसलिए हमने अब फिर से हमारे पास ड्रोन पॉलिसी है और लेट हो गए एंटी ड्रोन पॉलिसी में, ठीक है. एंटी ड्रोन पॉलिसी का मतलब है कि ड्रोन पॉलिसी डील्स विद द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑफ ड्रोन और एंटी ड्रोन पॉलिसी डील्स विद द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑफ दोज डिवाइसेस व्हिच कैन कॉम्बैट ड्रोन्स. बात समझ में आ रही है? क्लियर है ये? तो यानी कि ऐसी डिवाइसेस मैन्युफैक्चर करना जो ड्रोन को डिस्ट्रॉय कर सकें, डिटेक्ट कर सकें, आइडेंटिफाई कर सकें, कन्फाइन कर सकें उनको अपने ही प्लेस पे और फिर डिस्ट्रॉय कर सकें. यानी कि जो लाइन ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन है, जहां से कनेक्शन मिल रहा है ड्रोन को, ड्रोन एक डिवाइस से रिमोट डिवाइस से एक्सेस की जाती है, तो उस कनेक्शन को ब्रेक करना, डिटेक्ट करना, उस कनेक्शन को ब्रेक करना और फिर अल्टीमेटली डिस्ट्रॉय कर देना. तो ये टेक्नोलॉजी को अडॉप्ट करना और उसकी पॉलिसी, तो गाइडलाइंस भी लेट आई, 2023 में आई गाइडलाइंस, ठीक है. तो वो एक्चुअली दैट इज द मेजर कंसर्न्स फॉर, ठीक है, फॉर द टू हैव द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रेजोल्यूशन विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द ड्रोन पॉलिसी. नाउ कमिंग टू द कंटेंट पार्ट कि हमें एक्चुअली क्या क्या हमारे पास हिंट्स हैं जो हम लिख सकते हैं. ओके, सो क्वेश्चन नंबर 1, तो क्या क्या देखो स्टार्ट कर सकते हो ऐसे कि आप यू विल डिफाइन द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ विनिंग ऑफ हार्ट्स एंड माइंड. वो कॉन्सेप्ट क्या है? कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रेजोल्यूशन का एक पार्ट है कि 2 तरीके हैं, है ना. जैसे मान लो कोई डिसिप्लिन नहीं है, अगर आप नहीं पढ़ रहे हो, ठीक है, तो आप नहीं अपने शेड्यूल को फॉलो कर रहे हो, तो क्या तरीके हैं? या तो स्ट्रिक्टनेस करेगा कोई, ठीक है, रोज पापा फोन करेंगे, है ना, कि पढ़ रहे हो कि नहीं पढ़ रहे हो, हाँ वापस बुला लें, नहीं धमकी देंगे। एक तरीका ये है कि आपको उसकी इंपॉर्टेंस बतानी है, ठीक है। तो क्या होगा, सेल्फ मोटिवेशन आएगा अंदर, आपको खुद पढ़ना होगा, ठीक है। तो ये बिल्कुल वैसे ही, ये दो पार्ट है, एक कॉम्बैट वाला पार्ट है, धमकी वाला पार्ट है, वॉयलेंस वाला पार्ट है, और एक विनिंग ऑफ हार्ट्स एंड माइंड्स, ठीक है। तो कॉन्सेप्ट बताना है कि विनिंग ऑफ हार्ट एंड माइंड्स इज अ कॉन्सेप्ट ओकेजनली एक्सप्रेस्ड इन द रेजोल्यूशन ऑफ वॉर, insurgency and other conflict in which one side seeks to prevail not by the use of superior force but by making emotional or intellectual appeals to sway away from the violence, ठीक है। तो आपको ये बताना होगा, जब कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियर कर दोगे, विद रेफरेंस टू जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, इंडियन गवर्नमेंट हैज नॉट ओनली अडॉप्टेड, विद अपना रेफरेंस देना है जो क्वेश्चन का है, यानी कि जम्मू एंड कश्मीर का। सिमिलर क्वेश्चन कैन बी आस्क्ड फॉर नॉर्थ ईस्ट आल्सो, a similar question can be asked for नक्सलिज्म, ठीक है। तो जैसे यहां पर सद्भावना बताना है, तो नक्सलिज्म में क्या बताओगे, समाधान। रिमेंबर, नक्सलिज्म के समाधान एक जो अम्ब्रेला स्कीम है वो है टू यूज कॉम्बैट फोर्स टू फाइट विद टेररिज्म बट आल्सो स्ट्राइव रिलीजियसली टू विन द हार्ट एंड माइंड्स ऑफ द पीपल, राइट। तो इसमें स्कीम देख लो क्या क्या जो मेंशन करनी है, एटलीस्ट 5-6 इंटरवेंशन आपको मेंशन करने होंगे मिनिमम, ठीक है, क्योंकि कोर क्वेश्चन यही है दो पार्ट में, ठीक है। तो आपको जैसे बताना है आर्मी सुपर 30, जैसे सुपर 30 का नाम सुना होगा ना बिहार में, कि 30 लोगों को 30 स्टूडेंट्स आर एक्चुअली आइडेंटिफाइड एंड देन दे आर बीइंग टॉट बाय द मेंटोर, और फिर उनका एंट्रेंस एग्जाम होता है, फिर वो एक्चुअली दे आर गेटिंग प्रॉपर नो लर्निंग्स, और फिर वो सिलेक्शन के लिए प्रोबेबिलिटी बढ़ जाती है, ठीक है। तो वैसे ही ये आर्मी का इंटरवेंशन है, सुपर 30 कैंप चलाते हैं वहां पर, ठीक है, कॉम्पिटेटिव एग्जाम्स के लिए। बिल्कुल वैसे ही यहाँ पे आर्मी डिस्ट्रीब्यूट बुक्स एंड स्पोर्ट्स आल्सो, मेडिकल कैंप लगाए जाते हैं आर्मी के लिए, ठीक है, टू विन द सपोर्ट ऑफ द पीपल। देन ऑपरेशन सद्भावना, ये एक अम्ब्रेला स्कीम है, सद्भावना स्कीम इज एक्चुअली सपोर्टेड बाय द गवर्नमेंट एंड रन बाय द मिलिट्री, ठीक है। तो इसमें क्या होगा, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चरल पार्ट है और सोशो इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट का पार्ट भी है, यानी कि एजुकेशन वाले उनके खुद के स्कूल चलते हैं, जिनको बोलते हैं आर्मी गुडविल स्कूल। लद्दाख में 7 स्कूल अब तक ओपन हो चुके हैं आर्मी के ऐसे, ठीक है, फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट है, और यहाँ पे एजुकेशन प्रोवाइड करने के लिए, तो एजुकेशन प्रोवाइड करने के लिए, इकोलॉजी एनवायरमेंट को सेफ रखने के लिए, स्पोर्ट्स, हेल्थ केयर, इन एवरी डायमेंशन दैट ऑपरेशन सद्भावना डील्स, ठीक है। तो आपको इसके बारे में बताना है थोड़ा बहुत कि आर्मी, इनका नाम जरूरी ना, आर्मी गुडविल स्कूल, ठीक है, और जो अदर जो डोमेन्स है जहां पे आर्मी वर्क कर रही है वो मेंशन करना है। और अगर आपको याद हो, कुछ आइडिया हो, तो आप थोड़ा बहुत बता देना कि कितने प्रोजेक्ट्स चल रहे हैं, 17, 18, 10, और यू कैन मेंशन मोर देन 15 प्रोजेक्ट्स। अगर आपने कहीं पढ़ा हो तो आपको अप्रोक्सीमेट आइडिया याद होगा, तो ऐसे मेंशन कर सकते हो। देन मेजर एस्पेक्ट इज द इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑल्सो, कितना बजट एलोकेट किया गया है। तो अगर आपको ये याद हो तो फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंस करके मेंशन कर सकते हो कि 80 से ज्यादा स्कीम चल रही है जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में, और लगभग 1 लाख करोड़ से ज्यादा का फंड एलोकेट किया गया स्पेशली फॉर जम्मू एंड कश्मीर डेवलपमेंट एज ए ग्रांट, ठीक है। तो ये मेंशन करोगे। कारगिल इग्नाइटेड माइंड स्कीम है, तो दैट इज गर्ल स्टूडेंट्स फॉर, दिस इज फॉर गर्ल स्टूडेंट्स, तो उनके एजुकेशन के लिए एक स्कीम चल रही है, उनके एजुकेशन के लिए, फिर उनके स्किल डेवलपमेंट के लिए आप देखोगे दैट्स ए स्कीम फॉर एक्चुअली प्लेसमेंट, हिमायत है, इज अ प्लेसमेंट लिंक्ड स्किल डेवलपमेंट स्किल, यानी कि पहले एजुकेशन के लिए इग्नाइटेड माइंड्स, ठीक है, इसके बाद स्किल डेवलपमेंट के लिए, यानी कि हिमायत के थ्रू स्किल डेवलपमेंट, एंड दैट these skill development centers are directly attached with the industry also, यानी कि ट्रेनिंग कम प्लेसमेंट, ठीक है। तो यानी कि जो इंडस्ट्री की डिमांड होगी उन्हीं डिमांड पे उनको स्किल दी जाएगी। आर यू गेटिंग दैट? जैसे इंडस्ट्री की डिमांड है कि एआई के लिए हमें कुछ स्टूडेंट्स चाहिए, या हमें जावा पे वर्क करने के लिए कुछ स्टूडेंट चाहिए, ठीक है, 40 की डिमांड है किसी इंडस्ट्री में जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में, ठीक है, कोई कंप्यूटर रिलेटेड या सॉफ्टवेयर इंडस्ट्री रिलेटेड कोई वहां पर कंपनी है, और तो क्या होगा, उन्हीं स्पेसिफिक एरियाज में स्किल दी जाएगी और फिर उनको प्लेसमेंट दिया जाएगा, कंपनी आएगी टेस्ट करेगी प्लेसमेंट, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड प्लेसमेंट लिंक्ड स्कीम, ठीक है। बिल्कुल सिमिलरली उम्मीद जैसे कोई, हाँ देखो, ग्रास रूट पीस बिल्डिंग, तो कुछ एनजीओ है जो वहां वर्क कर रहे हैं, बॉर्डर्स लेस वर्ल्ड फाउंडेशन, हेल्प फाउंडेशन, दे आर एक्चुअली प्रमोटिंग द पीस बिल्डिंग देयर, ठीक है। तो दे आर क्रिएटिंग अवेयरनेस अबाउट द infiltration, about the terrorism, about the funding of the terror and about the recruitment for terrorism organization, ठीक है। तो उसके बारे में ये अवेयरनेस प्रोवाइड करते हैं, ठीक है। और ऐसे एक स्कीम है उम्मीद, इससे स्पेशल प्रोग्राम फॉर जम्मू एंड कश्मीर इंप्लीमेंटेड फॉर, देखो ये जो नेशनल रूरल लाइवलीहुड मिशन है, ठीक है, उसी के अंडर में है ये, ठीक है, यानी कि जो फंडिंग जो एनआरएलएम के थ्रू प्रोवाइड की जाती है, इसके अलावा उम्मीद के लिए स्पेशल फंडिंग है जिसमें क्या होगा, विमेन ठीक है, वुमेन को सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप क्रिएट करने के लिए प्रमोट किया जाता है, ठीक है, दैट इज फॉर वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट। तो ये कुछ स्कीम्स आपको मेंशन करनी होगी। तो इग्नाइटेड माइंड्स है, उम्मीद है, हिमायत है, ठीक है, ये सब मेंशन करोगे। इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर आपको खुद पता है कि जब भी टनल लॉन्च होती है तो आपने देखा होगा कि नाउ दे आर एक्चुअली प्रोवाइडिंग मोर प्रॉक्सिमिटी टुवर्ड्स वन मेजर लोकेशन टू अनदर लोकेशन, ठीक है। जैसे जवाहर टनल, ठीक है, इनॉग्रेट हुई। चेनाब ब्रिज इन, अभी आपने देखा होगा कि इस वन ऑफ द हाईएस्ट ब्रिज ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, ठीक है। एंड एम्स और आईआईटी, ठीक है, ये बन रहे हैं, अभी लॉन्च नहीं हुए लेकिन ये अंडर द कंस्ट्रक्शन, ठीक है। तो ये सब मेंशन करना होगा। क्रॉस बॉर्डर इंटरेक्शन ऑल्सो, दैट एक्चुअली बिकॉज बोथ द फैमिलीज आर लिविंग फ्रॉम बोथ द साइड्स, ठीक है। तो पाकिस्तान के जो बॉर्डर विलेजेस हैं और जो इंडिया के बॉर्डर विलेजेस हैं, तो वहाँ पे क्रॉस बॉर्डर लिंकेजेस प्रोवाइड करने के लिए जो क्रॉस एलओसी बस सर्विस है वो भी चलती है, जिससे कि लोग वहाँ पे अपने कल्चर, अपने फैमिली जो रिलेटिव्स हैं उनके साथ इंटरेक्शन मेंटेन रखें। अगर ये लिंकेजेस ब्रेक होगा, ठीक है, देन इन दैट केस दे हैव सम ग्रीवेंसेस विद द गवर्नमेंट, ठीक है, कि हमारा कल्चर, हमारा सोसाइटी, हमारा जो सोशल लिंकेजेस है, ठीक है, जो सोशल कैपिटल है वो एक्चुअली डिक्लाइन हो रहा है, डिग्रेड हो रहा है, ठीक है। तो दैट इज एक्चुअली द पार्ट ऑफ द सोशल एम्पावरमेंट, ठीक। नाउ फिर कंक्लूड करोगे पॉजिटिवली कि एक्चुअली कीपिंग इन माइंड द प्रेजेंट सिनेरियो ऑफ पीस एंड कंसेंसस बिल्डिंग, ठीक है, विद द पीपल ऑफ जम्मू एंड कश्मीर अ कॉम्प्रहेंसिव अप्रोच इज रिक्वायर्ड। तो आपने देखा होगा कि एक तरफ हम ये स्कीम चला रहे हैं और दूसरी तरफ अभी क्या हो रहा है, अब देख रहे हो ना जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में, ठीक है, 4 दिन से ऑपरेशन चले, ठीक है। तो वहां पे हमको टेररिज्म से भी फाइट करनी पड़ रही, जहां पर हमें वी हैव टू अडॉप्ट द कॉम्प्रहेंसिव अप्रोच। अब देखो यहां पर अगर ये जो पॉलिसी है हमारी विनिंग ऑफ माइंड्स एंड हार्ट ऑफ पीपल, तो उससे क्या होगा, लोग सपोर्ट नहीं करेंगे उनको, ठीक है। यानी कि जो हाइड आउट के लिए जहां भी कहीं जाएंगे वो विलेजेस, तो क्या होगा, अगर ये हम लोग पब्लिक अगर आर्मी के साथ नहीं होगी तो क्या होगा, वो उनको हाइड आउट प्रोवाइड करेंगे, ठीक है। दैट इज वाई this actually studies is very important to combat terrorism also there, ठीक है। not only not only accommodate the people of Jammu and Kashmir with in India, but also to mitigate and to completely destroy the terrorism or the radicalization in Jammu and Kashmir, ठीक है। तो इस तरीके से आप यहाँ पर मेंशन करोगे, ठीक है। आप सेकंड पार्ट देखते हैं, द यूज ऑफ अनमैन्ड एरियल व्हीकल, ठीक है। तो इसका फिर से देखते हैं कि एक्चुअली इसको लिखना कैसे है। तो यहाँ पर कैसे थ्रेट कैसे है, तो थ्रेट बताओ। देखो यहाँ पर थ्रेट ऐसे है कि दिस इज एक्चुअली टारगेटिंग क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर। तो हमने देखा ना एयर बेस कैंप पे अटैक हुआ, ठीक है। तो क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर होते हैं दैट एक्चुअली हैज द कॉम्प्रहेंसिव रोल, मल्टी डायमेंशनल रोल इन द सोसाइटी, ठीक है। और इन एनी स्टेट, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल क्या एग्जांपल ले सकते हो क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का, जैसे इंडिया में कौन कौन से क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर होंगे जिन पे अगर ड्रोन अटैक हो तो दैट विल डिसरप्ट द लाइफ ऑफ द पीपल एंड द एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव ऑफ द स्टेट, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ द स्टेट ऑल्सो। तो क्या होगा, जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल, हाँ, जैसे हॉस्पिटल्स, स्कूल्स या जो गवर्नमेंट प्रेमाइजेज हैं, ठीक है। दिल्ली मेट्रो का अगर साइबर अटैक करके और उसको पूरी फंक्शनिंग को आप अटैच उसको हैक कर लोगे तो आप देखोगे ना कि पूरा एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन यानी कि जो पब्लिक का मूवमेंट है वो रुकेगा, साथ साथ में जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव ट्रांसपोर्टेशन है वो रुक जाएगा, ठीक है। तो इट विल क्रिएट अ मल्टी डायमेंशनल इम्पैक्ट ऑन द फंक्शनिंग ऑफ स्टेट, ठीक है। दे आर कॉल्ड क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर। तो दे कैन इजीली टारगेट क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, दे कैन फेरी और ट्रांसपोर्ट आर्म्स एंड एम्यूनिशन, जैसे क्वेश्चन में दिया हुआ था। तो आपको मेंशन करना एग्जांपल, देखिए जैसा एग्जांपल दिया अभी फोटो में दिखाया था मैंने आपको इमेज में कि कैसे क्या क्या रिकवर किया गया, तो बिल्कुल वैसे ही मेंशन कर देना कि रिकवर्ड्स द एंड एवरेज नंबर ऑफ टाइम्स फ्रॉम द नॉर्थ ईस्ट पंजाब एंड पाकिस्तान बॉर्डर, ठीक है। तो आए दिन न्यूज में आया करता है ये, ठीक। साथ साथ में फॉर एस्पिनेज और सर्विलांस पर्पस, ठीक है। तो एस्पिनेज और सर्विलांस के लिए भी कहीं अटैक करना है तो उसके पहले या फिर कोई इंपॉर्टेंट इवेंट होने वाला है तो सर्विलांस के लिए वो यूज कर सकते हैं, ठीक है। दैट इज दे आर कॉल्ड रोग ड्रोन्स, ठीक है। तो हमारे जो अपने ड्रोन्स होंगे जो सिक्योरिटी पर्पज से लगाए जाते हैं, दे आर नॉट कॉल्ड रोग ड्रोन्स। रोग ड्रोन्स आर एक्चुअली those drones which are planted for the criminal purpose, ठीक है। तो मिशीवियस पर्पस, क्राइम पर्पस से जो यूज होते हैं उनको हमेशा टर्म देते हैं रोग ड्रोन्स, ठीक है। तो रोग ड्रोन्स से को एक्चुअली डिटेक्ट करने के लिए हमारे पास जो स्ट्रेटेजी होनी चाहिए, ठीक है। तो जो एस्पिनेज है सर्वेलांस पर्पस के लिए दे आर कॉल्ड रोग ड्रोन्स, ठीक है। और एक चीज और, वो एक और हमारे साथ कंसर्न ये है कि अगर ड्रोन्स को डिस्ट्रॉय करना है, तो अभी तक क्या है हमारे पास, जो ड्रोन्स को ड्रोन से डिस्ट्रॉय करना मुश्किल होता है, ठीक है, तो उसके लिए हमें एम्यूनिशन यूज करना पड़ता है ड्रोन्स को डिस्ट्रॉय करने के लिए। तो अभी जो जो स्ट्रेटेजी हमारे पास है वो राइफल्स हैं, जो अभी जैसे दुर्गा राइफल लॉन्च हुई है, तो लेजर बीम के थ्रू वो डिस्ट्रॉय करती है, लेकिन एक छोटे से ड्रोन को डिस्ट्रॉय करने के लिए वो बहुत एक्सपेंसिव पड़ जाता है, ठीक है, यानी कि जो स्ट्रेटेजी है अभी हमारे पास ड्रोन्स को डिस्ट्रॉय करने के लिए वो ज़्यादा एक्सपेंसिव हो जाती है, ठीक है। तो इसलिए एक बड़ा ही कंसर्न है कि लेस एक्सपेंसिव एंड देयर पोटेंशियल एप्लीकेशन कंटिन्यू टू एक्सपेंड, तो उसको डिस्ट्रॉय करना मोर एक्सपेंसिव, और ये जो उनका यूज है, जिस पर्पस से यूज होते हैं, वो लेस एक्सपेंसिव, ठीक है। तो कंसर्न क्या हो जाता है कि थ्रेट कैसे है, क्योंकि ये लेस एक्सपेंसिव है, तो किसी आदमी को भेजना आर्म्स एंड एम्यूनिशन के साथ में, उससे अच्छा क्या है, ड्रोन के साथ भेज दो, ठीक है। तो वो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन इजी हो जाता है, ज्योग्राफिकल टर्राइन इजीली क्रॉस हो जाएगा, ठीक है, और साथ साथ में दैट रिड्यूस द लॉस ऑफ ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज आल्सो, दैट इज व्हाई दिस इज फेवरेट नाउ, दिस इज देयर फेवरेट मेथड फॉर टेररिस्ट, ठीक है। तो आप देखोगे फ्रीक्वेंसी बढ़ रही है, इसीलिए क्वेश्चन ये ऐसे आ रहे हैं, क्योंकि आए दिन ये फ्रीक्वेंसी बहुत ज्यादा है, इसलिए न्यूज़पेपर में आए दिन आया करता है कि ड्रोन हमें मिल रहे हैं क्रॉस बॉर्डर, ठीक है। तो लार्जली अब जैसे एम्यूनिशन के, जो एम्यूनिशन आर्म्स एंड एम्यूनिशन का तो कम मिल रहा है, लेकिन हमें लार्जली ड्रग्स, मनी, ये ज्यादा देखने को मिल रहा है, ठीक है। तो जम्मू कश्मीर में भी देखो पिछले 1 महीने में 3 बार न्यूज आ चुकी है, ठीक है। तो क्या पकड़े गए वहाँ पे, ड्रग्स पकड़े गए, पैसे पकड़े गए, ठीक है, मनी पकड़ा गया, ठीक है। तो अब देखोगे मेजर्स कौन कौन से लिए गए, ये देखना है हमको। तो मेजर्स इंक्रीज बॉर्डर सर्विलांस, तो अभी ड्रोन अप्लाई किए गए हैं बॉर्डर्स पे, और अभी देख रहे हो जो अनंतनाग में ऑपरेशन चल रहा था, उसमें भी ड्रोन्स के थ्रू ही पता लगा रहे हैं कि टेररिस्ट कहाँ छिपे हुए हैं, ठीक है। तो टेरर, अब देखो इसके दो तरह के इफेक्ट हैं, कि ड्रोन्स को हम अप्लाई कर सकते हैं सर्च करने के लिए, ठीक है, और दूसरा जब ड्रोन एस्पेनेज ड्रोन होंगे, ठीक है, एडवर्सरीज के, तो उनको भी आइडेंटिफाई करना मुश्किल होता है, ठीक है। जैसे हम फॉरेस्ट के बीच में ड्रोन को पहुंचा के सर्च कर सकते हैं, लेकिन जो फॉरेस्ट के बीच में छुपे हुए ड्रोन्स हैं, उनको ड्रोन से ढूंढना होगा, ठीक है, तो वो आइडेंटिफाई करना मुश्किल होगा। तो प्रॉस एंड कॉन्स दोनों तरीके से हैं, ठीक है, कि ड्रोन्स को ढूंढना मुश्किल है, क्योंकि जैसे जैसे छिपना आसान है, वैसे ही ढूंढना मुश्किल है। आर यू गेटिंग दैट, कि जंगल में आराम से छिप सकते हो, ठीक है, तो ऐसे ही जब आराम से छिप सकते हो, उसका मतलब जो तुमको ढूंढ रहा है उसके लिए भी मुश्किल है, ठीक है। तो डबल इफेक्ट्स हैं, ठीक है। नाउ कमिंग टू न्यू ड्रोन पॉलिसी, तो हमारे पास एक हमने वी केम अप विद न्यू ड्रोन पॉलिसी आल्सो, दैट इज द इंटरवेंशन बाय द गवर्नमेंट टुवर्ड्स द टू कॉम्बैट ड्रोन। देन प्रोक्योरमेंट ऑफ एंटी यूएवी इक्विपमेंट, तो हमको ये भी मेंशन करना है कि हम कहाँ से जो प्रोक्योर कर रहे हैं, तो यूएसए से हमने स्टार्ट किया प्रोक्योर करना। फिर हमको ये जो D4S इक्विपमेंट यानी कि ड्रोन डिटेक्ट, डेटर एंड डिस्ट्रॉय, इट इज द फर्स्ट इंडाइजेनियस डेवलप्ड एंटी ड्रोन सिस्टम है। ये सिस्टम डेवलप किया गया जिसके थ्रू वी आर कमिंग अप विद मल्टीपल technology that actually find out the drone, detect those drone and destroy those drones, ठीक है। तो उसके लिए हमारे पास जो सिस्टम बना हुआ है, और जब डिस्ट्रॉय करना होता है उसके लिए हमारे पास वेपन्स हैं, ठीक है। तो पहले तो सिस्टम जनरेट करना पड़ेगा कि अगर कोई, यानी कि थ्रू सैटेलाइट्स आल्सो और थ्रू लेजर सिस्टम आल्सो, दैट टू डिटेक्ट द एक्टिविटी ऑफ ड्रोन इन द पर्टिकुलर एरिया। तो पहले क्या होगा, क्या करना होगा, हमको किसी भी ड्रोन का जो इंटरवेंशन है या जो एनक्रोचमेंट है वो डिटेक्ट करना पड़ेगा, पॉइंट नंबर 1। इसके बाद क्या करेंगे, जब ड्रोन डिटेक्ट हो गया इसके बाद क्या करेंगे, उसका लाइन ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन है उसको ब्रेक करना होगा, दैट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टास्क, ठीक है। तो टेक्निकली उसको थ्रू the use of the laser beams and the use of the software systems technology, ठीक है। तो उस और जब डिटेक्ट कर लिया तो अब क्या करना है, उसको डिस्ट्रॉय करना है। एंड मूविंग इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू डिस्ट्रॉय द मूविंग ऑब्जेक्ट, वेरी स्मॉल मूविंग ऑब्जेक्ट, ठीक है। इसीलिए इन लेजर बीम्स का यूज भी करते हैं। जैसे दुर्गा अभी हम पढ़ेंगे ना, कि दुर्गा सिस्टम जो रिलीज हुआ है, डायरेक्शनली अनरिस्ट्रिक्टेड रे गन अरे, तो ये गन्स डेवलप की गई हैं, ठीक है, जो एक बार इनको टारगेट दे दिया आपने, जैसे हमारे पास क्रूज मिसाइल्स होती है ना, टारगेट दे दिया अपने आप, टारगेट मूव कर रहा है तो क्रूज मिसाइल उनको डिस्ट्रॉय करेंगे। बिल्कुल वैसे ही यहाँ पर है कि टारगेट मूव भी करेगा तो उनको ये गन्स डिस्ट्रॉय करेंगे, ठीक है। तो अब ये बहुत ही एक्सपेंसिव टेक्नोलॉजी है, ठीक है। दैट इज व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड दैट कि टू डील विद ड्रोन वी नीड लॉट ऑफ अमाउंट ऑफ मनी आल्सो, ठीक है। तो ये जो टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप हुई है, द ड्रोन D4S, ठीक है, बाय DRDO, तो ये इंडिजिनस है, जबकि ये एक्चुअली हमने पहले परचेज किया था यूएसए से। अभी तक जो हमने जितने भी ड्रोन्स परचेज किए हैं एंटी कॉम्बैट, तो वो हमने यूएसए से परचेज किए, बट हमारे पास नाउ वी हैव आवर ओन टेक्नोलॉजी, ठीक है। सो कोलेबोरेशन बिटवीन सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस, ये भी एक इंटरवेंशन है कि इंडियन आर्मी, एयर फोर्स, नेवी सबके साथ आपस में कोलेबोरेशन, एंड द अदर जो हमारे पास जो पुलिस फोर्सेस हैं, जो जितनी भी इंटेलिजेंस फोर्सेस हैं उनके साथ कोलेबोरेशन करना, और साथ साथ में काउंटर अनमैन्ड एयरक्राफ्ट सिस्टम, जैसे दुर्गा का मैंने बताया अभी, तो काउंटर अनमैन्ड एयरक्राफ्ट सिस्टम, तो एक अनमैन्ड एयरक्राफ्ट सिस्टम है और टू काउंटर देम वी हैव अनदर एयरक्राफ्ट, ठीक है। तो एयरक्राफ्ट को एयरक्राफ्ट से मारने के लिए नई टेक्नोलॉजी। नाउ एंटी रोग ड्रोन टेक्नोलॉजी कमिटी भी बैठाई गई है, ठीक है। गवर्नमेंट ने, एमएचए ने एक कमिटी भी बनाई है टू डेवलप मेजर्स, टू डेवलप the policy and the strategic decision, so that now in future what we can do for anti combat measures, ठीक है। then collaborations also, तो recently ये एक बहुत ही important एरो आर्क एक स्टार्टअप एस्टेब्लिश हुआ है, ठीक है। तो इस स्टार्टअप ने यूएसए के स्टार्टअप स्काईडियो के साथ एक कोलेबोरेशन हुआ है, जिसमें दे विल कलेक्टिवली, ठीक है, वर्क ऑन द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑफ द स्टेट ऑफ द आर्ट टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड यूएवी, ठीक है। और वो इंडिया में डेवलप होंगे, ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं यूएसए में डेवलप होंगे। दैट इज कोलैबोरेशन इज फॉर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग द ड्रोन्स इन इंडिया। नहीं, सिविल सोसाइटी एंगेजमेंट एंड अवेयरनेस, दे आर एनजीओज एंड सिविल सोसाइटी विच एक्चुअली इन्फॉर्म द पीपल ऑफ दोज कंसर्न एरियाज, ठीक है। तो जो एरियाज कंसर्न हैं, जैसे बॉर्डर ऑफ नॉर्थ ईस्ट, बॉर्डर ऑफ द पाकिस्तान, राजस्थान, तो वहां के जो विलेजेस हैं, ठीक है, दोज पीपल हु आर लिविंग एट द बॉर्डर, दे आर इन्फॉर्म्ड बाय दोज सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस फंडेड बाय द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया आल्सो, ठीक है, कि वहां भी उनको फंड प्रोवाइड करते हैं, जिससे कि दे शुड इन्फॉर्म्ड अबाउट द ग्रेविटी ऑफ द ड्रोन्स एंड देयर यूसेज, सो दे आर इन्फॉर्म्ड अबाउट देयर द थ्रेट्स इनकर्ड बाय दोज ड्रोन्स। तो उनको बताया जाता है कि आप कुछ ड्रोन देख रहे हो, कुछ भी ऐसा उड़ता हुआ देख रहे हो, ऐसा कुछ जा रहा हो, तो उनको बकायदा पूरा कॉन्फ्रेंस चलती, सेमिनार चलते हैं ऐसे उन विलेजेस के आसपास, टाउन्स में, जहाँ पे बुलाए जाते हैं, उनको बताया जाता है कि देखो ड्रोन्स कैसे वर्क करते हैं, ड्रोन्स क्या कर सकते हैं, ठीक है, ड्रोन्स कैसे आपके लोगों पे अटैक कर सकते हैं, ड्रोन्स कैसे आपके यूथ को जो है वो ड्रग्स और एम्यूनिशन में इन्वॉल्व कर सकते हैं, ठीक है। तो ये ट्रेनिंग प्रोवाइड की जाती है सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के द्वारा एट द बॉर्डर विलेजेस एरियाज, ठीक है, या फिर जो भी टारगेटेड एरियाज हो वहां पर, ठीक है। अब इश्यूज एंड चैलेंजेस क्या है, देखो जो ड्रोन्स हैं उनके अटैक्स को एक्चुअली मिटिगेट करने के लिए, तो ये फास्ट मूविंग ऑब्जेक्ट है, स्मॉल टाइनी ऑब्जेक्ट्स होते हैं, ठीक है, तो दे कैन इन्फ्लिक्ट सडन डैमेज, ठीक है। तो जैसे अब ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने कोई इंस्टॉलेशन हमें करनी है वहां पर, जैसे हमें मिलिट्री को इंस्टॉल करना होता है तो वी नीड मल्टीपल सोर्सेज, तो इसमें क्या इन्फ्लिक्ट सडन डैमेज, ड्रोन गया अटैक करके वापस, ठीक है, तो सडन डैमेज कर सकते हैं। देन अनप्रेडिक्टेबल एंड गोस अनडिटेक्टेड, तो कई बार क्या होता है अनप्रेडिक्टेबल होते हैं ये, कि यहाँ पर ड्रोन वेदर इन दिस एक्चुअली ये ड्रोन्स का यूज कब करते हैं, जब हमेशा मौसम खराब होता है, ठीक है, तो बॉर्डर्स पे जैसे मौसम खराब हुआ तो क्या हुआ, उन ड्रोन का यूज करते हैं जिससे कि इनको डिटेक्ट करना मुश्किल हो जाए, ठीक है। और लार्जली वो एरियाज होते हैं जहां पर आसपास फॉरेस्ट हो, तो वो छिप जाते हैं, ठीक है। दैट इज वाई दिस इज द चैलेंज, जो मैंने बताया ना कि छिपना आसान है, इसलिए इनको ढूंढना मुश्किल है, ठीक है। Now, the use of missiles against drone is very expensive. Then handheld guns have very limited range and accuracy. तो इतनी accuracy की moving object को, तो इसीलिए that is why we have developed a new technology that is called the Durga 2, ठीक है, तो वो इसको mention करना होगा। And atmospheric obscurities and geographically hideout places, ठीक है, तो ये सब आपको ये सारे point mention करने होंगे, these are very important points, ठीक है। और फिर conclusion देना है कि हमारे पास एंटी जो ड्रोन पॉलिसी that should be updated, ठीक है, according to the time, जो एंटी ड्रोन अभी गाइडलाइंस हैं that should be policy and with the timeline, ठीक है, तो टारगेट हो और टाइमलाइन के साथ हो, ठीक है। एंड द सेकंड थिंग इज वी शुड प्रोवाइड द वे फॉरवर्ड, दैट वी शुड प्रोवाइड द एड इन द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ स्ट्रांग रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन द इंडस्ट्री, ठीक है, विद द स्टेट्स, तो यानी कि जो हमारी डिमांड है और उसके साथ इंडस्ट्री के साथ टाई अप होना चाहिए। वी शुड हैव अ स्पेशल यूटिलिटी व्हीकल सो दैट दिस द रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ द डिफेंस फोर्सेस कैन कोलेबरेट विद द इंडस्ट्री ऑल्सो, कि इंडस्ट्री वही मैन्युफैक्चर करे जो उनकी प्रॉब्लम्स को सोल्यूशन प्रोवाइड करे, ठीक है। यानी कि हाइड आउट सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है, तो हाइड आउट को डिटेक्ट करने के लिए हमारे पास ऐसे कैमराज होने चाहिए ड्रोन्स में अटैच, कि हम उनको डिटेक्ट कर सकें और उनको नाउ ड्रोन कैन इटसेल्फ किल द ड्रोन, ठीक है, तो उस टेक्नोलॉजी को भी डेवलप करना चाहिए, वो हमें मेंशन करना है। देन काउंटर ड्रोन स्ट्रेटेजी, एक प्रॉपर स्टडी होनी चाहिए। अभी तक हमारे पास क्या है, एंटी ड्रोन पॉलिसी है, वो पॉलिसी नहीं है, हमारे पास गाइडलाइंस हैं, ठीक है, तो वी आर डेवलपिंग दैट पॉलिसी, ठीक है। तो इस तरीके से आप एंड अप करोगे अपने आंसर को, ठीक है। तो हाँ, why don't why don't government back the use of drone? Hmm. No, government is actually backing that. That is why we have policy. But now to come up with the technology is challenged. Government is backing that. ठीक है? Government is see it's not like that government is not backing that. That's why government banning that. Why should government ban that? No, see actually देखो क्या बताया था अभी कि स्टार्टिंग में ही तो अप्रहेंशन था. देखो अगर अटैक्स हो रहे हैं हमारे ऊपर तो हमें वो टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप करनी पड़ेगी ना. कि देखो यहाँ पे दो बातें समझना अच्छे से, ठीक है, कि ये भी एक आर्ग्यूमेंट का पॉइंट था क्योंकि शुरुआत में यही तो आर्ग्यूमेंट था कि हमें बैन कर देना चाहिए, ठीक है, ड्रोन्स को. लेकिन अगर हमारे इंडिया में ही अटैक क्रॉस बॉर्डर होगा तो हमको डिटेक्ट कैसे करेंगे उसको? आर यू गेटिंग दैट? तो देखो टेक्नोलॉजी हमेशा क्या होता है कि टू साइडेड वेपन होते हैं, है ना. टेक्नोलॉजी को हम मिसयूज भी कर सकते हैं. तो शुरुआत में तो इसीलिए इसको डिमोटिवेट, मतलब गवर्नमेंट डिमोटिवेट नहीं किया, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट का अप्रहेंशन यही था, ठीक है, कि इसको अगर हम प्रमोट करेंगे तो इसका मिसयूज होगा. ठीक है, मतलब विद इन इंडिया टू प्रमोट ऑर्गेनाइज क्राइम एंड द स्मगलिंग, ठीक है, प्रमोट होगा. हाँ, और उसका मिसयूज भी होगा, ठीक है, कि ट्रांसपोर्ट अब क्योंकि रेगुलेटेड पॉलिसी नहीं है. लेकिन जब कोई आउटसाइड इंडिया क्रॉस बॉर्डर अगर हम पे अटैक करेगा तो हमारे पास टेक्नोलॉजी होनी चाहिए ना इसको उसको डील करने के लिए, ठीक है. तो अगर अब जैसे टेररिज्म जो पॉलिसी ऐसी हो जो उसको रिस्ट्रिक्ट कर सके, ठीक है, हमारे गवर्नमेंट के पास ऐसी पॉलिसी हो जो उसको रिस्ट्रिक्ट कर सके. किसको रिस्ट्रिक्ट कर सके? जो एक्चुअली जो टेररिज्म एक्टिविटी है, जो स्मगलिंग हो रही है इंडिया में, तो पॉलिसी ऐसी होनी चाहिए कि ड्रोन्स का मिसयूज ना हो विद इन इंडिया, ठीक है, पहला पॉइंट. दूसरा पॉइंट, अगर क्रॉस बॉर्डर अटैक हो रहा है तो हमारे पास कॉम्बैट टेक्नोलॉजी होनी चाहिए, एंटी यूएवीज कॉम्बैट टेक्नोलॉजी. यानी कि अगर अटैक हो रहा है तो हमारे पास ड्रोन से अटैक से बचने के लिए क्या क्या सॉल्यूशंस हैं, क्या टेक्नोलॉजी है हमारे पास. अगर हम कंप्लीटली बैन कर देंगे तभी तो ऐसा हुआ कि आज जिस इंडस्ट्री में हम कोलैबोरेशन करने की बात कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, तो वो अगर 4 साल पहले हो चुका होता तो हमारे पास ऐसी टेक्नोलॉजी पहले ही हो जाती कि उस अटैक को रोक सकते थे. यानी कि सर्विलांस सिस्टम इतना स्ट्रांग होता कि कोई भी ड्रोन अगर एनक्रोच कर रहा है इंडिया में तो वो एनक्रोच करते ही डिटेक्ट कर सकते थे उसको और उसको डिस्ट्रॉय कर सकते थे, ठीक है. तभी तो अभी भी इस जो पॉलिसी है वो रेगुलेटेड है, ठीक है. तो आप देखोगे कि जो स्मॉल, मीडियम और लार्ज स्केल ड्रोन्स हैं उसके लिए हमारे पास पॉलिसी है और उसके लिए लाइसेंस चाहिए होगा और साथ में उनकी एक रेंज है, ठीक है, और साथ में पर्पस है, किस किस पर्पस से यूज किया जा रहा है ये. तो यानी कि अगर रिकॉर्डिंग पर्पस से यूज किया गया, परमिशन ली गई है, ये कैमरा है और ये इवेंट्स रिकॉर्डिंग पर्पस से यूज किया गया, तो उसको ट्रांसपोर्टेशन पर्पस से आप यूज नहीं कर सकते. आर यू गेटिंग दैट? तो इसलिए जो पॉजिटिव पॉइंट्स हैं उनको हमको लेके चलना होगा, ठीक है. नेगेटिव पॉइंट्स की बेसिस पे वी कैन नॉट हैव आवर बॉर्डर वल्नरेबल. बस समझ में, इसलिए कंप्लीट बैन नहीं कर सकते. अप्रहेंशन था, इसीलिए से वी आर लेट नाउ, ठीक है, क्योंकि अब नाउ ट्रांस बॉर्डर दे आर यूजिंग एट लार्ज लेवल. तो कैसे, अगर वो लेके आ रहे हैं वेपन हमारे पास तो हमारे पास टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं होगी तो हम कैसे उससे कॉम्बैट करेंगे. और जो अभी जो 4 दिन ऑपरेशन चला होगा आपने देखा होगा कि जो एरियाज हैं अनंतनाग के आसपास, तो आपने देखा होगा कि जो चाहे वो पूंछ सेक्टर के आसपास हो, दे हैव वेरी डेंस फॉरेस्ट, ठीक है. अब उन डेंस फॉरेस्ट में ड्रोन ही हमारी हेल्प कर रहे हैं, ठीक है. तो उनको पॉजिटिव वे में हमको प्रमोट करना होगा, ठीक है, कि वो डिफेंस के पास एटलीस्ट नहीं, सिविल सोसाइटी के पास, जनरल पब्लिक के पास लाइसेंस हो तो डिफेंस के पास एटलीस्ट ये सपोर्ट हो कि देयर शुड हैव द लार्ज नंबर्स ऑफ वेरिंग ड्रोन्स विद वेरिंग टेक्नोलॉजी, ठीक है. तो वी कैन नॉट कंप्लीटली बैन दैट. नाउ कमिंग टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. सो व्हाट आर द इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी चैलेंजेस बीइंग फेस्ड बाय इंडिया, ठीक है. तो क्या क्या चैलेंजेस हैं बताओ, ठीक है, बहुत सिंपली बता सकते हो, बताओ फटाफट एक कौन कौन सा. हाँ, टेररिज्म, वेरी गुड. और हाँ, नक्सलिज्म, वेरी गुड. हाँ, कोई भी बताओ, सबको पता है ना कि इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी चैलेंजेस क्या क्या है इंडिया में, बताओ. नॉर्थ ईस्ट में माओइस्ट, वेरी गुड, ठीक है, चलो. नक्सलिज्म, ठीक है. स्मगलिंग, ठीक, ड्रग्स स्मगलिंग और ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग, राइट. तो बैठे बैठे 7-8 बता सकते हो, ठीक है. और मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग, हवाला सिस्टम और किडनैपिंग, ठीक है, ये सब है ना. किडनैपिंग का जो यूज करते हैं, जो फंड एक्सटॉर्शन बाय दोज हु आर हैंडलिंग द ऑर्गेनाइज्ड क्राइम. तो क्या करते हैं, एक्सटॉर्शन करते हैं, है ना. कि बॉलीवुड पता चला कि अच्छा जवान ने 2000 करोड़ रुपए कमा लिए, ठीक है, तो कहा कि देखो सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट है आपके लिए, ठीक है, हो सकता है तो कुछ पैसे भिजवाओ. तो ये ऐसे होता था पहले, ठीक है। तो दोज हु आर एक्चुअली दोज एमएनसीज आल्सो, ठीक है, हु आर डिक्लेयरिंग देयर मिलियंस ऑफ मनी, मिलियंस ऑफ रुपीज एज अ प्रॉफिट, तो क्या होता था, उनके पास मेल आ गए, ठीक है, कि इतना पैसा कमाया जा रहा है तो कुछ हमें भी दीजिए, ठीक है, थ्रेट, सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट। और ये बहुत ही एक्चुअली बिकॉज ऑफ द टैक्स इवेजन, कि टैक्स, क्योंकि ब्लैक मनी भी है, तो अगर वो डिस्क्लोज भी करेंगे कि सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट है, थ्रेट के लिए कंप्लेंट किया, लेकिन बहुत से लोग कंप्लेंट नहीं भी करते हैं, ठीक है, तो क्या करते हैं, वो पे कर देते हैं, और जब वो बताएंगे पे करने के बाद तो क्या होगा, फिर वो ब्लैक मनी है तो उसे टैक्स पे करना पड़ेगा। तो बहुत सारी ऐसी इंसिडेंसेस, इवेंट्स हैं जिन जो दे आर नॉट रिपोर्टेड, ठीक है। तो ये सब सारा पैसा ऐसे ही हवाला के थ्रू, ठीक है, यानी हवाला, हवाला मतलब है कि दोस मनी कैन नॉट बी डिटेक्टेड, तो क्या मल्टीपल बिजनेस में लगा दिए गए मनी वो, ठीक है, और उनको बाद में वाइट कर दिया गया टैक्स पे करके। बात समझ में आ रही? तो ये सारे क्राइम, तो इन सारे क्राइम्स को आपको लिस्ट करना है। जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल क्रॉस बॉर्डर टेररिज्म, रेडिकलाइजेशन, ठीक है, एग्जाम्पल दे दिया कहाँ, जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, ठीक है, नॉर्थ ईस्ट भी मेंशन कर सकते हो। नियो टेररिज्म, ये एक टर्म स्पेशली मेंशन कर देना है कि लोन वोल्फ अटैक, ठीक है, वो ज्यादा हो रहे हैं, ठीक है, ये सबको पता है लोन वोल्फ अटैक मतलब कि पहले ये जो जो अटैक्स हैं दे आर यूज्ड बाय नंबर ऑफ पीपल, ठीक है। अभी क्या है कि ये एक सुसाइड बॉम्बर्स की तरह, ठीक है, कि एक बंदा जाएगा, जैसे ट्रक लेके गया और चढ़ा दिया पब्लिक पे, ये बहुत देखा होगा ना आपने, यूरोप में होता है। तो यूरोप में लोन वोल्फ अटैक इज वेरी प्रोमिनेंट, ठीक है, कि अगर पकड़ा गया तो एक पकड़ा गया, एंड वन पर्सन कैन किल नंबर ऑफ पीपल, ठीक है, विद लेस रिसोर्सेज, ठीक। ऐसे ही यहाँ पर ओवरग्राउंड वर्कर्स, ओवरग्राउंड वर्कर्स मतलब देखो, अब जम्मू कश्मीर में जो हमने विनिंग ऑफ हार्ट्स एंड माइंड पढ़ा, उसमें ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है। ओवरग्राउंड वर्कर्स आर दोज कॉमन पीपल हु आर सपोर्टिंग द रेडिकल पीपल और द टेररिस्ट पीपल, ठीक है, तो हाइड आउट प्रोवाइड करते हैं, ठीक है। क्यों? क्योंकि उनके उनके भी इनडायरेक्टली गवर्नमेंट के साथ ग्रीवेंसेस हैं, तो क्या कर रहे हैं कि जो लोग फाइट कर रहे हैं उनको हाइड आउट, उनको रिसोर्सेज प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं, इंफॉर्मेशन प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं, दे आर लाइक कॉमन पीपल एज स्पाई, आर यू गेटिंग दैट? तो ये एक नया तरीका अपनाया गया, ठीक। नाउ इलीगल माइग्रेंट्स, ठीक है, रिफ्यूजीज, ठीक है, तो वो भी सिक्योरिटी का थ्रेट है। ड्रग्स एंड आर्म्स स्मगलिंग, तो ये सारे मेंशन करें। साइबर स्पेस कुछ भी नया नहीं है, सब पता है आपको, जो सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट्स हैं अभी आपको पता होगा ना, एम्स का सर्वर हैक कर लिया गया था, जब मैं पढ़ा रहा था साइबर सिक्योरिटी उसी दिन हैक किया गया था, ठीक है। तो और इलीगल एक्टिविटीज ऑन द हाई सीज, ठीक है, तो हाई सीज जो पायरेसीज होती हैं, ठीक है, तो इसीलिए हमने जब तक क्लास की थी तो हाई सी ट्रीटी पढ़ी थी, है ना, तो हाई सी ट्रीटी इज टू एक्चुअली मिटिगेट द क्राइम, इलीगल एक्टिविटीज इन द हाई सी, ठीक है, वो भी इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी का पार्ट है, ठीक है, क्योंकि वो जो क्राइम होगा अल्टीमेटली फंड कहाँ यूज होगा, ठीक है, थ्रेट एज ए विद इन द स्टेट। वैसे सिमिलरली इनस्टेबिलिटी इन द नेबरहुड, तो अगर म्यांमार में इनस्टेबिलिटी होगी, तख्ता पलट होगा, अफगानिस्तान, पाकिस्तान, इन सब जगह अगर स्टेट अनस्टेबल होगा तो क्या होगा, क्रॉस बॉर्डर फिल्ट्रेशन होगा, वेरी गुड, ठीक है। तो ये सारे पॉइंट मेंशन करने होंगे। लेफ्ट विंग एक्सट्रीमिज्म, नक्सलिज्म, ठीक है, तो वेरी नो 4 decades प्रॉब्लम। नाउ इंसर्जेंसी नॉर्थ ईस्ट, ऑर्गेनाइज्ड क्राइम लाइक ड्रग ट्रैफिकिंग, स्मगलिंग, हवाला, शेल कंपनीज एंड ऑल, मरी टाइम सिक्योरिटी ऑल्सो, तो प्राइवेसी, स्मगलिंग, ट्रैफिकिंग, ये सब आपको मेंशन कर देना, ठीक है, सारे पॉइंट की चैलेंजेस क्या क्या है, और बहुत ही नॉर्मल तरीके से, ऐसा कुछ नहीं कि आपको बहुत ज्यादा डेटा चाहिए हो उसको, ठीक है, बिल्कुल जनरल सिंपल वे में आपको बता देना है। अगर आपको याद है कुछ इवेंट्स ऐसे तो रिसेंट इवेंट्स मेंशन कर सकते हैं कि आपने पिछले 1 महीने में कोई इवेंट ऐसे पढ़े जो आपको याद हो, ठीक है, तो आप मेंशन कर दो। देन रोल ऑफ सेंट्रल इंटेलिजेंस एंड इन्वेस्टिगेशन एजेंसी, तो कौन कौन सी एजेंसी है, कुछ एक नाम बताओ जो जो ये सब रिसर्च वगैरह करते हैं रिलेटेड टू टेररिज्म, ठीक है, हमें केवल टेररिज्म तक कन्फाइंड रहना है, पुलिस की बात नहीं करेंगे, ठीक है। तो कौन कौन सी, जैसे रॉ है हमारे पास, ठीक है, रॉ डील्स विद द एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स, ठीक है, फॉरेन अफेयर्स थ्रू कोवर्ट ऑपरेशंस, ठीक है, छिपके काम करते हैं। आईबी विद इन इंडिया, ठीक है, और सीबीआई एंड द ईडी, ठीक है, तो एनफोर्समेंट डायरेक्टरेट भी वर्क करता है रिगार्डिंग द फाइनेंशियल क्राइम्स, ठीक है, तो जो मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग वगैरह उनसे कौन डील करता है, ईडी एंड सीबीआई, ठीक है, और नेशनल एनआईए दैट डील्स विद द टेररिज्म, ठीक है, तो अभी हमने देखा था कि जो कुछ साउथ में या जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में टेररिज्म एक्टिविटी होती है तो एनआईए का भी इन्वेस्टिगेशन का रोल होता है, ठीक है। तो सिमिलरली हाँ, तो हमने एक बार देखते हैं शुरुआत से फिर से, तो आईबी, ठीक है, आईबी का मेंशन करना है, उनका मैंडेट मेंशन कर देना कि एक्चुअली आईबी का रोल क्या है। सिमिलरली रॉ का रोल मेंशन करना है, सिमिलरली एनआईए का रोल मेंशन करना है आपको, सिमिलरली एनफोर्समेंट डायरेक्टरेट का रोल मेंशन करना है। तो जैसे एग्जाम में आप एग्जाम्पल दे सकते हो कि जो पीएफआई थी, जो पॉपुलर फ्रंट ऑफ इंडिया था, वो एक्चुअली मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग का यूज करके, उसका डायरेक्ट रोल तो नहीं था लेकिन इनडायरेक्ट रोल था कि कैसे वो टेररिज्म फंडिंग में इन्वॉल्व था, ठीक है। तो उसको किसने पकड़ा, एनआईए सीबीआई, जिसमें एनआईए का रोल भी था क्योंकि टेररिज्म इन्वॉल्व था और मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग का केस था, इसलिए डायरेक्टरेट जो ईडी थी उसके पास पावर थी वहां पर इन्वेस्टिगेशन की, ठीक है। सिमिलरली यू कैन मेंशन एनसीटीसी, तो एनसीटी नेशनल काउंटर टेररिज्म सेंटर दैट एक्चुअली इन्वॉल्व द कोलैबोरेशन बिटवीन ऑल द कंसर्न डिपार्टमेंट्स, ठीक है। तो जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन जितनी भी एजेंसीज हैं, जितने भी कॉम्बैट एजेंसीज हैं जो विच आर इन्वॉल्व इन द काउंटर टेररिज्म, ठीक है, तो उन सबके बीच कोऑर्डिनेशन, एक ऐसा सेंटर जो सबके साथ कोऑर्डिनेशन कर सके, ठीक है। नारकोटिक्स कंट्रोल ब्यूरो, ठीक है, टू कॉम्बैट इलिसिट ट्रैफिकिंग एंड ड्रग अब्यूज, तो उसका भी मेंशन करना है, नारकोटिक्स कंट्रोल ब्यूरो। देन वी टॉक अबाउट द नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ cryptology research and development. It is the only research institute deals with the cryptology education in Asia, ठीक है। तो यहाँ पे क्रिप्टोलॉजी से रिलेटेड जितनी भी रिसर्च होती है, ठीक है, वो होती है। तो इतना सारा मेंशन करके और रिसेंट एग्जांपल देके अगर आप न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ते आ रहे हो तो जो भी अपने जो भी पढ़ा हो, ठीक है, कुछ भी एग्जांपल्स हर एक पॉइंट के साथ मेंशन कर सकते हो, ठीक है। और फिर कंक्लूड कर देना है कि दैट इंडियन गवर्नमेंट इज कमिटेड टू जीरो टॉलरेंस टुवर्ड्स टेररिज्म, स्ट्रॉन्ग फ्रेमवर्क फॉर काउंटर टेररिज्म लॉज, स्ट्रेंथनिंग द एजेंसीज सिक्योरिटी विद द मैंडेट गिवन that needs to be updated according to the rising technology, advancing technology। तो ये सब मेंशन करके आप पॉजिटिव नोट पे कंक्लूड कर सकते हो कि आपको बताना होगा कि न्यू थीमेटिक साइबर क्राइम्स लाइक मिसयूज ऑफ डेटा, मिशन फॉर्मेशन, ठीक है। तो अब एआई, डीप नेट, डार्क नेट है ना, हमको इनसे भी डील करना होता है, क्योंकि इन डार्क नेट्स का आपने WCR करी होगी तो पूरा डीप नेट, डार्क नेट पढ़ाया था, ठीक है। तो यहाँ पे डार्क नेट का यूज करके और कैसे नाउ दे आर डीलिंग विद द मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग, ठीक है, एंड दे आर एक्चुअली यूजिंग दोज फंड्स फॉर द ट्रैफिकिंग ऑफ ड्रग्स एंड ह्यूमन, ठीक है। तो ये मेंशन करके और कंक्लूड कर देना, ठीक है। फिर नाउ नेक्स्ट देखते हैं कौन सा क्वेश्चन है, दैट इज द मेजर सोर्सेस ऑफ टेरर फंडिंग इंडिया। तो अब देखो कनेक्टेड है क्वेश्चन, ठीक है। तो हमने जो थ्रेड की बात करी उसकी फंडिंग कहाँ से आ रही है, ठीक है। तो जब हमने बात की थी ना कि ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग, तो ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग के थ्रू भी तो पैसा आता है, ठीक है। तो वो बताना है पैसा किन किन रास्तों से आ रहा है, तो हवाला ट्रांजैक्शन के थ्रू पैसा आ रहा है, किडनैपिंग, साइबर क्राइम, काउंटरफिट करेंसी है ना, नकली करेंसी को जो ट्रांजैक्ट करके, डोनेशन फ्रॉम सपोर्टर्स ऑल्सो, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल लश्कर तैयबा का मेजर फंडिंग जो है वो कहाँ से आता है, चैरिटी के नाम पे आता है, ठीक है, कि वो एक्चुअली दे आर इन्वॉल्व इन जिहाद एंड फाइटिंग फॉर देयर इस्लामिक प्रिंसिपल्स। तो लार्जली उनको फंडिंग कहाँ से मिल रही होती, चैरिटी फ्रंट से मिल रही होती है। लश्कर तैयबा का जो एलईटी है पाकिस्तान बेस्ड। नाउ एक्सटॉर्शन, ठीक है, तो बिजनेसमैन के थ्रू एग्जांपल, बिल्कुल ये 10th क्वेश्चन और जो ये क्वेश्चन है क्वेश्चन नंबर 19, दे आर इंटरलिंक्ड, ठीक है। तो वहां पे जब आप उस क्वेश्चन को सॉल्व कर रहे होगे तो जो मेथड आपके दिमाग में आ रहा होगा बिल्कुल वहां उसको यहाँ पे और डेप्थ में एक्सप्लेन करना है बस, ठीक है। नारकोटिक्स ट्रेड, ठीक, वहां से पैसा आया, आर्म्स स्मगलिंग, किडनैपिंग फॉर रैंसम, दे आर द रिसोर्सेज कि अच्छा किडनैपिंग ऑफ फॉर रैंसम, आर्म्स स्मगलिंग, नारकोटिक्स ट्रेड, एक्सटॉर्शन, डोनेशन फ्रॉम सपोर्टर्स, साइबर क्राइम, हवाला ट्रांजैक्शन, ठीक है। इसके अलावा किसी के दिमाग में कुछ आ रहा है जो सोचे कि सर इसके अलावा ये भी लिख सकते हैं एग्जाम में, ऑल आर कवर्ड, या किसी को लग रहा हो कि सर ये एक पॉइंट छूट रहा है, कोई ऐसा लग रहा है किसी के दिमाग में कुछ नया पॉइंट आया, नहीं, तो ऑल आर कवर्ड, ठीक है। तो अगर इफ यू आर एबल टू राइट ऑल द पॉइंट्स इन द एग्जाम देन दैट्स वेरी गुड, ठीक है। 15 मार्कर है और देखो सारे बहुत इजी हैं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं कि आपको बिल्कुल नहीं है कुछ ऐसा इसमें ना पता हो, ठीक है। तो सारे पॉइंट्स मेंशन कर सकते हो, ठीक है, एग्जांपल्स के साथ। फिर आते हैं एफर्ट्स फॉर कर्टेलिंग सोर्स ऑफ टेरर फंडिंग, ठीक है। तो टेरर फंडिंग के लिए क्या एफर्ट्स किए गए, तो सबसे पहले तो हमें याद रखना है कि जो रेगुलेशंस है वो बतानी है कि फाइनेंशियल इंटेलिजेंस यूनिट है FIU, जैसे इंटरनेशनल कौन सी है FATF, ठीक है, तो बैन करने के लिए दैट इज the financial act task force, that is actually provide the list of the countries which actually provide the haven for those terrorist organizations they involved in the financial transactions, ठीक है। तो जो ब्लैक मनी है उनका यूज करते हैं, यानी कि जो अगर उनकी कंट्री के थ्रू डायरेक्ट या इनडायरेक्ट ट्रांजैक्शंस हुए हैं which provide the terror funding, ठीक है, तो वो FATF उसको ब्लैकलिस्ट करती है उन कंट्रीज को। तो वैसे ही इंडिया में फाइनेंशियल इंटेलिजेंस यूनिट है जो एक्चुअली जो दैट कलेक्ट द रिसर्च एंड कलेक्ट द इंटेलिजेंस रिगार्डिंग द फाइनेंशियल फ्रॉड्स, ठीक है। तो वो इंटेलिजेंस शेयरिंग, तो उसके लिए इंटरपोल, FATF जैसे है, तो कोलैबोरेट विद इंटरनेशनल एजेंसीज, ठीक, तो वो मेंशन करना है आपको। क्रैक डाउन ऑन हवाला, तो उसके लिए हमारे पास PMLA एक्ट है, प्रिवेंशन ऑफ मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग एक्ट, तो उसको मेंशन कर देना है और उसका सबमिट टास्क बताना है कि टास्क एक्चुअली कर क्या रही गवर्नमेंट इसके थ्रू, हवाला को कैसे कर रही है, टारगेट इलीगल हवाला ऑपरेटर्स एंड नेटवर्क्स, ठीक है, थ्रू इंटेलिजेंस एजेंसीज। देन बॉर्डर सिक्योरिटी, तो ये फंड कैसे आ रहा है, थ्रू बॉर्डर्स, ठीक है, तो बॉर्डर सिक्योरिटी इज ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट, तो वो मेंशन करना है। पब्लिक अवेयरनेस, जैसे मैंने बताया, इन्वॉल्वमेंट ऑफ द पब्लिक थ्रू सिविल सोसाइटी इज ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट, ठीक है, द पब्लिक शुड नो दैट दिस द मेथड इज यूज्ड फॉर द इलीगल ट्रांजैक्शन, ठीक है। तो हो सकता है कि कई बार जो क्रॉस बॉर्डर ट्रेड हो रहा है उसके थ्रू ट्रक्स से आ रहे हो, या हो सकता है ड्रोन्स के थ्रू आ रहे हो, तो उसको भी चेक करना। एंटी मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग इनिशिएटिव जो पीएमएलए एक्ट है उसके थ्रू। इंटरनेशनल कोऑपरेशन, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल इंडिया इज पार्ट ऑफ द यूनाइटेड नेशन ऑफिस ऑफ काउंटर टेररिज्म, तो जो यूएनओसीटी है या फिर यूएनओडीसी है, जैसे टेररिज्म प्रिवेंशन ब्रांच ऑफ यूनाइटेड नेशंस ऑफिस ऑन ड्रग्स एंड क्राइम, सो इसके साथ जो इंडिया के साथ जो कन्वेंशन हुए हैं और उसके साथ कोलैबोरेशन हुए हैं, ठीक है। तो एक ये है इंटरनेशनल कोऑपरेशन, तो आपको नेशनल इंटरनेशनल दोनों ही मेंशन करने होंगे। केवल देखो ये सारे पॉइंट तक तो जनरल हैं, ठीक है, आप मतलब हर कोई लिखेगा, लेकिन जैसे ही आपने ना इंटरनेशनल कोऑपरेशन मेंशन कर दिया, इसका मतलब यू आर वेल प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर दिस आंसर, ठीक है। और जब एग्जामिनर को ये लगेगा कि आप वेल प्रिपेयर्ड हैं किसी आंसर के लिए, व्हेन यू मेंशन ऑल दीज इनिशिएटिव्स, ठीक है, विच इंडिया अंडरटेक्स, ठीक है, फॉर द टू इम्प्लीमेंट द कॉम्बैट एक्टिविटी, तो क्या होगा, इंप्रेशन दैट क्रिएट द डिस्टिंक्ट इंप्रेशन, योर आंसर वुड बी डिस्टिंक्ट, दैट इज व्हाई इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट। और अगर साथ में सेकंड पार्ट आप देखेंगे तो नो मनी फॉर टेरर कॉन्फ्रेंस, तो आपको जैसे मैंने बताया था कि आपको अगर जो आइडिया है कि आपको कॉन्सेप्ट पता है कि नो मनी फॉर टेरर कॉन्फ्रेंस, ये नेम देख रहे हो आप, तो इसका मतलब है नो मनी फॉर टेरर, इट मींस दैट इज द एंटायर कॉन्फ्रेंस वुड बी बेस्ड अपॉन द टेरर फंडिंग, ठीक है। और टेरर फंडिंग का कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियर है आपका, तो जाहिर सी बात है आपको डायमेंशन भी पता होंगे कि इस पे किन ऑब्जेक्टिव्स पे बात हुई होगी। देखो इसीलिए क्वेश्चन को इजी बनाया गया है, यूपीएससी का थोड़ा लिबरल अप्रोच था कि इसमें डिस्कशन के पॉइंट नहीं पूछे गए और आउटकम नहीं पूछा गया, ठीक है, कि इस कॉन्फ्रेंस के आउटकम्स क्या क्या हुए, या जो एक्चुअल में जो सिग्नेटरीज थे, और साथ, क्योंकि ये देखो ये एक्चुअली फ्रांस का इनिशिएटिव था, फ्रांस ऑस्ट्रेलिया, तो इसमें सिग्नेटरीज भी हैं, कंट्रीज इनवाइट की जाती हैं, ठीक है। तो अल्टीमेटली जो सिग्नेटरीज थे और जो आउटकम आया, ठीक है, उस आउटकम के क्लॉजेस नहीं पूछे गए आपसे, आपसे पूछा गया कि कॉन्फ्रेंस का ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है, एंड कॉन्फ्रेंस का ऑब्जेक्टिव इज वेरी जेनरिक, ठीक है। तो आप केवल इजीली बता सकते हो कि क्या करना है, और इसका एक्चुअली एम क्या था, टू ब्रिंग टुगेदर द ग्लोबल लीडर्स, एक्सपर्ट्स एंड पॉलिसी मेकर्स टू डिस्कस एंड स्ट्रेटेजाइज अगेंस्ट टेरर फाइनेंसिंग, ठीक है। अब ये हो गया मेजर एम, और ये तो मैंने इसलिए लिखा है क्योंकि देखो आपको क्या करना है, आपको अगर याद है पूरा पूरा कि एम एक्चुअली क्या था और किन ऑब्जेक्टिव्स पे बात हुई थी, तो मेंशन करिए, क्योंकि ये मॉडल हिंट है, अदरवाइज यू कैन कम अप विद डायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्टिव्स ओनली, ठीक है। बट अगर, लेकिन ये है कि आइडियल फ्रेमवर्क ये होगा कि आप उसका पूरा एम बताओ कॉन्फ्रेंस का, और उस एम के बाद जो माइक्रो टॉपिक्स हैं, जिन अलग अलग टॉपिक्स पे इन्होंने बात करी कॉन्फ्रेंस में, ठीक है, तो वो बताओगे कि जैसे एनहेंस इंटरनेशनल कोऑपरेशन, तो फोस्टर ग्रेटर कोलैबोरेशन विद द party countries, then share best practices with each other, then raise awareness, we should have awareness raising programs, strengthening legal framework, also discuss the need for an implementation of a stronger legal framework, जैसे अपने पास पीएमएलए एक्ट है, तो इसको कैसे और इम्प्रोवाइज कर सकते हैं, इसको कैसे और स्ट्रेंथन कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि वहां पर क्या होगा, फिर क्रॉस बॉर्डर जो ट्रेड है, शिप्स हैं, तो हम कैसे जो पेट्रोलिंग के थ्रू उन शिप्स को, जैसे फ्रांस से कोई शिप आ रही है, तो फ्रांस से कोई शिप आई, तो उसको क्या इन्वेस्टिगेट करना है, तो ट्रेड हैम्पर होगा उससे, हो सकता है कि जो एमएनसीज हैं फ्रांस की, वो रिस्ट्रिक्ट करें कि हर बार हम अपनी शिप्स को इन्वेस्टिगेट कर रहे हैं इंडिया में, तो हमें प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, तो यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट सपोर्ट चाहिए होता है, ठीक है। तो दिस इज एग्जाम्पल कि कैसे हमें अपने लीगल फ्रेमवर्क को स्ट्रेंथन करना है, और उसमें हमें स्टेट्स का सपोर्ट चाहिए होगा, और स्टेट का सपोर्ट पे डिस्कशन कहाँ होगा, इन ऐसी कॉन्फ्रेंसेस में, आर गेटिंग दैट इज व्हाई नाउ शोकेसेस टेक्नोलॉजी सॉल्यूशंस की, एक कंट्री दूसरी कंट्री के साथ अपने टेक्नोलॉजिकल सॉल्यूशंस शेयर करेगी कि हाउ वी कैन प्रिवेंट द, नाउ टू फाइट विद द डार्क नेट, व्हाट आर द मेजर सॉल्यूशंस वी कैन अडॉप्ट, ठीक है। वी कैन नॉट एक्चुअली प्योरली ट्रैक द ट्रांजैक्शंस ऑफ थ्रू द डीप नेट, ठीक है, तो क्योंकि इनकी टेक्नोलॉजी ऐसी इंक्रिप्टेड होती है कि हम उनको ट्रैक नहीं कर पाते, ठीक है, तो इसलिए नाउ डेवलप अ यूनाइटेड फ्रंट एंड वी शुड वर्क टुवर्ड्स अ यूनिफाइड एंड कोऑर्डिनेटेड ग्लोबल रिस्पांस टू चोक ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल लाइफलाइंस ऑफ टेररिस्ट ग्रुप्स, तो हमको ये बताकर और फिर कंक्लूड कर देना है कि जैसे नो मनी फॉर टेरर कॉन्फ्रेंस was a crucial step in advancing international collaboration, strengthening efforts to curtail the terror financing activities with India's commitment to global काउंटर टेररिज्म एफर्ट्स, ठीक है। तो लैंग्वेज कुछ भी डिफरेंस हो, लेकिन हमें थीम रखनी है कि जो नई टेक्नोलॉजी आ रही है उनको इन्वॉल्व करके हमें कैसे एडवांस पॉलिसी लेके आनी है। ठीक है। तो एक पॉजिटिव नोट, हमेशा बैलेंस पॉजिटिव नोट के साथ ही एंड अप करना है, ठीक है। ऐसे नहीं बताना है कि अच्छा ओके फाइन, ठीक है। तो दिस इज आर इज ऑल 4 क्वेश्चन। तो अब आपको एक आइडिया मिल जाएगा कि हमको, कि देखो ये पेपर, इस पेपर को आइडियल पेपर मत मानना, ठीक है, क्योंकि ये पेपर एक, अगर एंटायर पेपर वाज इजी टू मॉडरेट, तो इजी इसीलिए क्योंकि इनके आपने देखा होगा कि बहुत ही जेनरिक टॉपिक पूछे गए हैं, ठीक है। दोज हु हैव डन विद द क्लास, दे हैव इजीली, दे कैन डन डू दिस पेपर वेरी इजीली, ठीक है। अगर उनको नो कॉन्फ्रेंस, नो मनी फॉर टेरर, अगर कॉन्फ्रेंस के बारे में आइडिया नहीं भी है, तो एटलीस्ट दे हैव सम कॉन्सेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी, ठीक है। तो ओवरऑल अगर देखें तो चारों क्वेश्चन दे आर वेरी इजी, बट डू नॉट कंसीडर दीज ऑल दिस क्वेश्चन एज ए स्टैंडर्ड, ठीक है, और बेंचमार्क फॉर यूपीएससी। क्यों? क्योंकि पॉलिसीज आपको, इनिशिएटिव्स आपको डीपली डिस्कस करने होंगे, स्टडी करना पड़ेगा कि जो नए, जितने भी नए इंटरवेंशंस हैं, जो नए इनिशिएटिव, उनको डीपली स्टडी करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि ये बहुत ही जेनरिक क्वेश्चन पूछे गए, ठीक है। लेकिन आपको टफ के लिए तैयार होना पड़ेगा, ठीक है, डिफिकल्ट के लिए तैयार होना पड़ेगा, जिससे कि ये क्वेश्चन बहुत ही ईजी हो जाएंगे आपके लिए, और आप बहुत ही ब्यूटीफुल तरीके से इसको एग्जाम्पल्स के साथ और इनिशिएटिव्स के साथ आप आंसर कर सकोगे, ठीक है। तो दैट इज ऑल फॉर इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी, राइट। सो अगर किसी को भी आंसर राइटिंग से में या प्रॉब्लम हो, या फिर किसी का भी कोई भी इशू हो रिगार्डिंग हाउ टू टैकल दीज क्वेश्चंस इन एग्जाम, ठीक है, जो बेसिक क्लैरिटी चाहिए हो, तो आप डाउट सेशन ले लेना, ठीक है, तो करवा दो, ओके, ठीक है। थैंक यू ऑनलाइन।